college championship kicks off here once again, and what better way to do it than with some more Valorant action. A bit of a break between Game 1, or Series 1, I should say, and the start here of Series 2. And on top of that break, we unfortunately will be missing the first map of the series, but we're jumping into a pretty darn good one, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get closer to the series start as a whole. Let's go ahead and jump on over and talk a little bit more about what everything, all the marbles, what everything here is going down into, Jackson. Let's first talk about our pricing, what the players themselves are really hunting for.
All about that scholarship money for Gnosis. I mean, first place, getting that 16,000 to split amongst the team. A big difference between first and second, as you see, the prize pool cuts in half to about $8,000. And then we get third and fourth place to about $6,000 and $5,000 per team. Once you split that up between the 5 players, it's not really a lot when it comes to third and fourth place. So each team definitely looking to get that first place.
Yeah, you're hunting for it, right? You want to get as much of that piece of the pie, the proverbial pie, and also, you know, I'm sure that can buy you plenty of pies as well.
Yeah.
But so let's go and talk a little bit about the format. We're already into week 3 of this thing, so we've had a lot actually coming to this state. It starts out with the upper round, 16 teams, 16 in the lower. If you lose in the lower, you're out. That's it. Over. If you lose in the upper, then you just drop down into the lower round 2, and it continues on in that fashion. If you win out, you continue. And the both teams we've had here today have lost in their upper series and are now into our lower round as we step into this last week of, well, I would say like before we see like what really the teams are going to be, right? It's week 3. Week 4 is about where I feel like the teams are going to solidify themselves completely. You just got to get through this one first. But this is our format. Let's go ahead and take a look more specifically at how that upper brackets kind of panned into. Then we'll take a look at how the lower brackets panned into, and we'll also give you a little bit of a hint. This is what we're going to see today. Great game against Winthrop and Harrisburg. They actually came in with a victory. Harrisburg kind of upset that #1 seed of Winthrop. Tamu Maroon, who actually just took away their victory in that series and now has confirmed their way into the upper finals. They're going to try to vie once again for their chance at the grand finals. It'll be great to see them once again. Maryville and Cumberland, they drop down Cumberland, and then they have to now face off against Fisher Navy, and where they took the victory against that Fisher side. And Fisher's now been sent down to the lower round, where they had just taken down previously that St. Clair side. So those teams that have gotten dropped, that Fisher Navy, and now that there's Harrisburg Storm, they're now going to have to go into the lower side. Let's go and take a look at the lowers and see how that's panning out. And this is where we have today's second series in. Fisher Navy will have to face Winthrop in lower round 6, and then Harrisburg Storm will face the winner of Northwood and Cumberland. And that puts us with Jackson, the Northwood versus Cumberland series here for the broadcast tonight.
Yeah, both of these teams have been, well, Northwood especially, where we've known them to be the favorites for first 2 years of CVAL, right? And they were back-to-back champions, but struggled a little bit last year. This year, however, it seems that they finally started to return to form just a little bit. Strong showings today so far at CECC, but also a insane losers bracket run that we've seen right now. And they have been facing some pretty tough teams. You know, the level of Valorant has just increased overall. You see so many strong teams nowadays that Northwood has somewhat kind of become a bit of a side note, in an afterthought. But this year, they may just have a chance to make that resurgence if they can get past a very seasoned Cumberland Phoenix team.
We can see how this will pan out as a whole between them, but Cumberland Phoenix has been a team, and it feels like a lot of the South region has kind of swung into the things, right? Tamu was getting an invite team for CVAL South, right? So you're looking at that and going, wow, they were already in the semi side of the upper bracket, right? And they're vying for that chance to go through. Maryville technically could be considered the same way. Like, you've got so many teams in there, and Cumberland has been competing exceptionally well. We're going to throw it on to our next side. But it is really a big question of how this lower side is going to pan out, because there's still so many more games to go into this one. This one is your Northwood roster. Rip Benji, I believe, is still their name. Tuzi, Dip, Ferbsa, and Darkest. These players have been here for a very long time. I have been seeing these names now for 3, if not 4 years, it feels like. They are extremely talented individuals, and they have proven that to be the case with their record and their history and the accolades they have collected to that point. Turn that over now to Cumberland. And this roster, they have 2 sets of rosters. This roster is completely brought in. They have done a big step to secure themselves in for this and taking that big leap, and Cumberland has provided that for them. JP, Jfon, Wadi, Fsu, and Shooter. It is 100%, or technically it's Fsaw. I had a big conversation, interviewed him the other day. It was a big conversation point. FSAW, I believe is the correct. Like, I'll have to actually check here in a second. But they are a very talented team, and they've worked really hard to prove that they're here for a reason. You know, they've got another roster below them that's also exceptionally talented that they ended to prove that they were the better team of those two. So it's kind of like inter-school rivalry. But this is now, I think, one of the biggest matchups they'll have. They faced Maryville, they lost to them. Now they get to face Northwood, which is so precedent, so accoladed. This will be a very tough battle for them, Jackson.
Jerseys and headshots. That's how you know they're serious. You know, this team has been playing a lot of
Cumberland
games
socials? They're going crazy right now.
I know, and well deserved. I mean, they are putting on a nasty run, and they're just playing so many games. There's so much team chemistry between these guys that, you know, I expect them to really come out strong. And as we did get a little bit of a first map, we saw them do really well on Lotus against Northwood.
Yeah, I think that's kind of expected for them as well. Lotus was going to be their map pick in that, and you'll take a look here at the how that map ban kind of played into account. It was Lotus up first. It was picked by Cumberland. You had Haven up next. Northwood wanted to go to Haven, and then Ascent for that finale. One of my favorite teams I've seen play Haven in the playstyle for it was actually not Cumberland Phoenix, but Cumberland... why am I blanking on the name? It's not Cumberland Phoenix, this is their second. Cumberland Destiny, that's the name of the team. And Cumberland Phoenix actually faced Cumberland Destiny on Haven and beat them by like a 6 or 7 round difference. So Cumberland Phoenix is also very good at a map like Haven, and they don't really have a lot of precedent for playing it by all accounts. But over on Lotus, I mean, Shooter dropped themselves 20 kills and only 10 deaths. JP was up there as that Viper, and we like to talk a lot about how typically the Vice and the Viper are their solo prowlers on attack, and they're really your facilitators for your offense, creating space and opportunities. It was not JPhone that was really doing that for them. Instead, it was JP and Shooter, likely this is a defensive story for them to start off that side. So they didn't really have to see the Viper as often in comparison. There's only 6 rounds that obviously played in that second half, so you didn't really have as many chances as well for JPhone to really to step up to the plate and soar. But no matter what the case is, the map in front of us is Haven, and this is, yes, Northwood's pick, but you cannot sleep on the way that Cumberland performed. 13-5 is a crazy stat line for a map that feels like the new Ascent. Even when Ascent got Brack, it still feels like the map for a lot of teams, and only getting 5 is just not the best look for Northwood, and they're really going to kick it into high gear for the second map, so I'm really interested to see how they play into it.
Yeah, and not to mention Cumberland is on the attack side of Haven this time, so if we take a look at the map before previously on Lotus, we see Shooter topping the leaderboard, and that's exactly what you want Shooter to be doing. You want them to be aggressive off the start, to take those early engagements, but also win them out. So now that they're on this map pick for Northwood, having the advantageous side of attack, we get to see Shooter continue to roll that momentum. If he can get started early, this is going to be very difficult for Northwood to try and weather the storm.
Oh, weather the storm indeed. In terms of agent selection, Cumberland don't really stray too far from what is typical for this map, I would argue. You see the teams here will be reversed in a second for you to kind of reflect it a little bit more accurately, but it obviously looks as if they are in fact putting Benji over towards the Jet, which Benji is a good Jet player, but if I recollect correctly, Benji was more so a Sentinel main back in the day. Maybe that's changed. No matter the case, it obviously does change. Benji played over on Sentinel on map 1, so maybe they're trying to make that shift. Waylay was played by Firmsa, of all things, on their offense for that. That didn't work out very well for them with the score results. But Northwood will likely play a little bit more tongue-in-cheek for the map. Considering that they were playing the Waylay before, they may just go, okay, this didn't work, let's go try it and true. And teams can kind of switch between the ISO and the Yoru, having both of those, and then trying to bring in a big initiation power, like the Teho, the Breach, and they're having your smoke player as well. And some teams just don't really like to have a major Sentinel choice, right? And they kind of can make sacrifices here and there. But Cumberland, I think they do like to stick pretty stalwart with the Jet play. They're really confident with it. They do Neon occasionally as well. So keep an eye out for that. Shooter can play almost any duelist fairly well. I do think they're the most competent when it comes to Raze. And you can see that super valuable pick for them. But we've also seen, and we've had this on broadcast a couple times here already for the championship here, Jackson, but Shooter on Jet is still very competent and plays very well. We saw that in Ascent previously from them, so maybe we see it turn the other way as Darkus has looked to bring in something that's the Breach for the side of Northwood. You see exactly the same way for Cumberland. It feels like a necessity for this map right now.
I mean, Benji, even though he's been on the Sentinel role, they have been doing good numbers on Jet, probably because Darkus has been able to set them up. But I mean, I don't know about you, Scott. I swear all the Jets in my ranked games think they're Sentinels. They never enter the site.
It does kind of feel that way sometimes. Now there's the switch up. Benji finally will go over to that Cypher as expected from them. Furbza is that duelist choice for them and defaults over towards the Jet, which for this map is not the go-to default for a lot of teams, especially with even past the Neon nerf, which does still hurt in a lot of ways. Sova's into the dip. Or dips onto the Sova, I guess I should say here. It's super valuable for the recon bolt, the shock dart to clear out corners. Teo flushes in very well as well to have your double initiator for a lot of teams. Teo can force players to take fights on their terms for the offense. Wadi's going to do the exact same thing for the side of Cumberland, and now it's just the choice for Shooter if they're going to play the Neon, if they're going to go for the Jet, and they're going to go for the Jet, it looks like, as you have now Northwood to choose for their final, and you're expecting likely a mirror matchup. The Omen is too darn good for this map, and there it is selected here for Tozy.
I mean, I feel like we always do these agent selects for Haven, but what always ends up being the mirror comp. It's always going to be the Flash and Dash Jet with the Cypher, Omen, and Sova. I think the only team that we really saw so far at CVAL switch something up was Harrisburg University coming in with that Neon pick. So, you know, maybe we see them still in upper bracket. Oh, no, they just got kicked out to losers quarters for tomorrow. But maybe we'll be able to see something different when we play them. But with Northwood and Cumberland, it's business as usual on Haven, the mirror matchup as we see.
Well, as casters, we hate to see it. We hate to see mirror matchups. It's a little boring. It can be a little sad. But we know that the players at this level, at this echelon, Jackson, are going to provide way more than enough entertainment for the series as a whole. And let's remind everybody out there that this is, in fact, a 1-0 right now. This is technically map 2. Cumberland is leading. Cumberland is the team on the left. That'll get flipped some point. Cumberland is leading in this series, stepping into now Northwood's map pick of Haven, and they have to either confirm if map 3 will be required or if it will be done in a 2-0 fashion. And Cumberland really didn't make any guesses at the end of map 1. They dominated 13-5, and the stat differences between players across the leaderboard scoreboard were pretty disparaging for Northwood. But that is also maybe a map they just don't really want to play. They're just not something they're super comfortable, and they'll take that and say, we've been around long enough that a single map is not an issue. We're going to play the full best of 3 and expect the result at the end of it still.
Yeah, the history that Northwood has on all of these maps, especially a map like Haven, is cannot be understated. However, on the side of Cumberland, they have been playing a lot of events this year. This is a team that, you know, may have been put together recently, but they have gone through the ringer, and they are very strong on Haven as well. Perhaps maybe not as celebrated as Northwood may be. So I do kind of expect this to be a closer matchup than we saw on Lotus. As Haven goes, I expect to see sort of like one team start to roll out strong, and then eventually the other team just claws back into a close match, potentially in overtime. But I do think that Northwood have an opportunity to eke this one out.
Yeah, and one thing I'll crack a joke wise at their team as well for the side of Cumberland. They are like their social media team, their school is so wholeheartedly behind them, and I feel like the moment you start to see that as a player, that can really push you to that next level. Northwood has obviously been around for a long time too, so they've had a lot of avid support as well, and you see that for these big programs that are pushing their way through the championship, right? More wholehearted support, more conversation points about it, the players feeling the expectation, and then obviously if you lose out, that expectation kind of being like it falls on your shoulders and it weighs you down. It's sad, but it's also like I had the opportunity to be a player in this position, to be a person in this position, with so many people supporting me behind the scenes, and a university that's you know, putting me on a pedestal literally and providing me with scholarships and more to take that extra step and that next level. But unfortunately, they didn't provide them with very good food choices. I've judged them on where they go for some of their after event foods they'll do together, and they got to pick better food options. I'm hoping they are well fed though, as they're over at a different event right now in Arlington and playing this one from there, which is another reason why this has kind of been a little bit delayed, because they had to wait for computers, but they've done fairly well themselves over there, and that may be a buff for them, right? To be in a loud area could obviously be a debuff and a negative, but it could be something where they have their fan base, which there is a ton there for Cumberland, because they're playing in like 6 or 7, if not all of the titles that are provided for at that event. So they're going to have people supporting them. Even if they're not the ones up on stage, they're going to have the fan base that was in that crowd cheering in others' social media clips, just going crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Just to be in that environment, you feel the adrenaline rush come through. You know, your shots are a little faster, your reactions are a little bit crisper. Everything just sort of feels good, especially when you have your teammates surrounding you. And like you said, You got the school behind you. You got the social media behind you. I mean, what kind of gamer is not cloud driven, right? If you're getting all the retweets, you're feeling good about it. You know, every clip that you make is going to get posted, is going to get retweeted. It's a good feeling to have. And Cumberland already leading 1-0, I think. And having the attack side, I expect them to come out strong. I expected to see shooters shoot and hit shots and start the ball rolling. I do expect Northwood to put up a big fight and kind of bring this back closer and perhaps maybe eke out an end. But at this point, it's anyone's game. This is not. You can't even say that this is a team. This is a game between like a David and a Goliath, despite Cumberland being so new. Once again,
two Goliaths.
Yeah, it's really two Goliaths. This losers bracket right now that we have this year for CVAL, it's insane. Some of these teams that are in there.
Yeah, if you want to throw up the losers bracket again, as we're kind of prowling for time as we're getting something solved, it's impressive. Like every single team that has made it this far is scary in its own right.
Yeah.
And then still in the upper side, you still have, you know, Maryville, and you still have Tamu Maroon. They're extremely scary rosters and teams. And this is, again, Tamu was the 5th invite team, if I read correctly, for the South for the entirety of this event. For the championship, you had WVU, who took down Cumberland in that finale for South. You had UST, NC State. Well, NC State didn't get nearly as far. UST is still going through in the lower side. Cumberland's obviously still going through. WVU just got knocked out by UST. Tamu's gotten through on their invite through it. There's just so much to say about this. Well, this is technically a number 2 Northwood from that North Division facing off against the number 2 Cumberland from the South Division. It's hard pressed to really compare them, especially when you see how a lot of question was kind of going for, I know it's kind of like a judging thing for like how the teams are going to fare and expectations and kind of how we would bracket them, whether they were an upper or lower for the ones that didn't get through. And we're just placing first in their division. It was always this big question. It goes, how are they going to fare against each other? And there was always the big, who's got the scariest one? And you always look at the leagues first, because the leagues have everybody to go through. So you're looking at those big teams. In this sense, you were looking at Winthrop, you're looking at Fisher Davy and UCF Knights. So they're from the ECC, you had the ACAC, you had the Midwest, MEC. You look at all these colleges, right, that are in more than just their regional divisions. And you're like, okay, these are scary teams to look at. And that's why Winthrop was such a scary force. And look what happened to Winthrop. They faced a very tough opponent, and they got shut down in a very big affair that was like, wow, they just got upset by Harrisburg, and now they're moving on and continuing, and then they just got taken down by Texas A&M, and now you're even more scared of that force that wants to get back into it, to go back to the finals and have their chance again.
Yeah, if you take a look at all these big name teams that actually started in the losers bracket pretty early, I mean, it's like we saw West Virginia, we saw Winthrop, we saw Northwood especially, and it's like this year's the competition has been rising more and more. And ever since you mentioned it, the South region has been killing it. Like, I'm from the South, you're from the South, we're bringing the heat. But no bias here today.
No bias.
We want to see the closest game possible. We want to see all this competition. Please. Yeah, give us the map 3.
You want us map these, 1. Give us map 3.
Yeah,
I want to see all the
We gotta earn our check right now. You know,
I've been casting Rainbow Six before this. Get me out of here. I'm trying to see Valorant. I'm trying to enjoy myself here. But my goodness, I'm very looking forward to seeing what Northwood is capable of doing. And it was a slow game for him. We'll take a look more of the cursory stats that they had. Benji was playing the Deadlock on Lotus, which there are some teams that have been kind of opting to bring that in. It worked fairly well for them as an individual, 13 and 12 with a 2 assist stat line. But then you way below that, you're looking at Tuzi over on the Omen, which as your role for both offense and defense, you're really just looking at setting up one-way smokes to stall if you're on defense. And then for offense, you're setting those up to force players to play back into them and make it so they don't want to stand in them, where hopefully your initiators or whatever you bring can kind of counteract that. They went 9 and 14 with 9 assists. And then you're looking at your duelist. Lower than that, Ferbza, 9 and 15, and these opening kills are such a problem. They get 5, but it doesn't really feel like those 5 are enough to scream out that, hey, I also had 15 deaths, right? That is just a ridiculously high stat line, the highest in the entire lobby, and Waylay is a little hard to use. It's still a little bit, it doesn't feel like they're in a perfect state. They're being worked out, right? But it wasn't the right choice against this Cumberland roster for Lotus, and I think a lot of that's going to come off the shutdown potential for the comparison of all the utility you have to deal with for Shooter, who's so good with I want to say Hunter's Fury, so good with the Showstopper, the paint shells, closing gaps and spaces, and doesn't really need to ever play like they need to run away and die, right? They're going to go in, they're going to get kills, they're going to play like they're always going to kill the opponent in front of them, which is what you really want from a duelist, while Waylay feels like they can do that, then get out, do that, then get out. Raze doesn't get out. Raze just stays and fights. And so I think that was something that works a little bit more for Lotus in my mind. Though we didn't see it, I'm assuming, which you know what they say about making assumptions. Shouldn't do that. Turn that the other way, though. Dip, 8-14, and then Darkest 4-14. These two bottom players, and you don't really expect to see the Teo go crazy on Lotus. I've mentioned that like every week now because we see Lotus every week. You don't really expect them to go crazy, but you don't expect there to be the Viper of Darkest even below that. So Darkest is going to have a good game in front of them, hopefully, to mentally recover from that and show what they can do over in that controller role.
Yeah, Darkest.
Actually, they're on Initiator role. I think they're on Breach, right?
We're usually used to seeing Darkest like higher up on the leaderboard.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Not really. This is a player that, you know, time and time again comes through for Northwood, but seems to have dropped the ball a little bit just on Lotus. But Scott, I'm honestly quite upset that we missed the first map. I am a Waylay enthusiast, to say the least. I would have loved to see.
That's the second part of it. I wanted to see Waylay.
Yeah, I wanted to see how they bring this out. I mean, we see Joggabo if VZT just kind of go nuts on that agent, but that is Joggabo, right? But I still wanted to see what Furbza was able to do. However, it is a very tough agent to play, especially when you're trying to take the spot away from a agent like Jett, especially on a map like Haven. I expect Furbza to find a little more comfort on that Jett pick, you know, just being able to smoke for themselves, being able to engage and disengage whenever they feel like it, because Waylay, you're kind of like more stagnant. Once you've decided to commit, there is no way out. Like, you have to just do it. Whereas Jett is a little bit more fluid, and her abilities and gun pull out is just a lot smoother. So I do expect Furbza to be a lot more comfortable on this Jett pick.
Yeah. We'll have to see how that plays perfectly for a map like Haven. For Scent, you look at the Jett and you go, oh, really good cloud burst into a site. You dash into the cloud burst. It's your wombo combo. For Haven, it's a little bit different. For C site, you toss the cloud burst onto default, onto the Radiant Knight stack of the Jhin there. You updraft, then tailwind over toward, or you do it the opposite. You go towards Plat instead. And there are a lot of teams that will go more so for a Plat push. It really just kind of confirms how generally you want to play aggressively for your duelist and how far you're willing to put that Omen, put that controller out into space. Some teams, we saw that last weekend, they put their Jett out towards a tailwind towards Plat, or they'll use a Neon dash to get over there with a slide, and then they put the Omen with a Shrouded Step past the Cypher Cage or the Tripwire that's expected to be there, and then you have two players out into space where they can fight, but then if you lose the Omen and also lose the Neon, or even just one of the two, you're missing a major gap, and it creates, I think, more problems than you really make up for with the value of having those choices in front of you. We're finally in to the depths. Though technically the real rounds start to get started about round 4 or 5, but it's a pistol with Northwood starting off on the defense, and they're putting all their players, except for 2, which are on A site, all the way through Garage, and this is where you're hoping that JP can kind of catch you off guard, playing a little bit of util, shooter on site, JP for more, gets 2, and there's Tuzi having to clap it back, but it's maybe a little bit too late in total effect, as you're having to still deal with this in a 2v5.
That was insane coming out from the side of J-Point. I don't know if you saw that, but they did a reverse fault line. As you see, Dip will find 2, but they will get traded out. Dip now, Tuzi finding themselves in the 1v2 does have the paranoia, but they're going to get paranoid by themselves as well, so they're going to get double swung. They have to make sure that they have enough time to try and fight this out, but no, too many angles. FSaw finally getting that pick, and Cumberland Phoenix comes out on top. But back to that execution, I think we heard JP hear the rush flank coming out from mid, and then immediately we are going to see JP just turn around, and instead of using the fault line to initiate for the site, they used it to stun the flank. And that exactly what allowed J-Fluent to get the 2 picks that they needed in that flank. And that's just absolutely amazing. That just goes to show the chemistry that this team has, Scott.
Now round 1 of the books for Cumberland, and they can make the choice to either get a little bit aggressive in terms of buys for round 2, or they could play a little bit more passive. And we have seen them typically go for a major buy, at least in some substantial fashion. J-Fawn will sit here with a Stinger in their hand, and the team overall is sitting back in attacker spawn, really hoping that Northwood would try to put some pressure into their face. Maybe they keyed into a VOD, did a little bit of preparation, realizing that Northwood would like to be a little bit more aggressive. No matter what the case is, they're hoping to force these players out into space, use their utility to engage for intel, a little bit of a poke and prod game, right? And then punish these players for being stuck out and called out by that utility. Right there. Hunter's Fury out, off into A main, into lobby, out through long, catches the player here in Cubby, and Shooter does what Shooter needs to do, finding the frag to secure.
Yeah, shooters shoot. Finding that first pick. Now they get to slowly scale up onto that A site. We're going to see Dip likely make contact first. The smoke's going to go down, and that's going to allow Dip to keep their life. The rotations are going to come from Northwood, but this was all just a show and go play for Cumberland. Maybe not, actually. Foul burst is going to come out. Flashpoint as well, but a fault line will stop the push.
That's not ready.
In the face, Tuzi. He has to pay the price. Finally, he's dealt with this one by Shooter. Buddy and Shooter are playing well together, but Shooter's already deep into that space using a tailwind. It's JP from down and short to get that second to last frag, and it's just a single lonesome player now for Northwood remaining. And Benji doesn't really have the perfect angle to work with. They likely will just play to die to spike detonation here. Maybe hope they can pick apart one kill. But there's nothing in the back pocket for Northwood, and it's a round 2 victory, panning in favor for Cumberland, and they get through that with a whole lot still remaining in that back pocket, not having to lose anything. Any of the purchases they did come through in a pretty large fashion. The Stinger, the only thing they really dropped there. And you're plenty happy with losing that because you saved one player's kit and utility and their credits, I should say, to buy up for this third, knowing that you could get in a confident enough victory in round 2 to change the same. So with 2 Guardians, a Bulldog, a Vandal, and another Bulldog, Northwood will have all their rifles, but they're missing some armor, so you're really hoping to kit those fights of the Guardians against those armorless players, so there's soft armor players, and just hope that they'll overextend once again and you'll stall in your spawn. Maybe go for a B site hit, which would be fairly interesting, but they could just use this as a rotate point and through garage instead.
You see a bunch of utility being thrown, and Shooter's gonna dive right in there, but unfortunately he's gonna find 2 people to have to deal with. Darkest gets that first pick. Meanwhile, they're gonna try to go through the garage onto that seaside. Trade's gonna be evened out here, but they should have control of the site now. No, they don't find Tuzi there in logs. Tuzi will find 2 and 4 to get the round 3 win for Northwood.
You didn't notice Tuzi on tubes? I feel like that's like consonants. Is that way you have like the same like syllables or whatever? It sounds similar. It feels like that's the right thing. You just kind of expected at that point. But a wonderfully played round for Northwood, as you'd expect for it. A 4K for a single player that charged that even higher. And Northwood will get there first. We're starting to see where we should start to see where the meat of VALORANT starts to get underway, where Cumberland will have proper weapons and rifles, will have all the utility. Same thing for Northwood. They didn't lose too much in round 3, so you're going to see how Cumberland should stereotypically play out a lot of their attacking rounds, bar a change-up in their strat book, and a lot of it is still going to be that just default stall. Try to poke out towards either side. Maybe use your Scythe utility to wait and see if anyone vies for map control for Northwood. Benji used to do that a lot for Northwood's side, so maybe something that they're concerned with in these later rounds that they could start to brew up because they don't have that option or don't really have to worry about that just yet. They don't have any utility being procced in. Benji is staying very honest, really, on that C site. But it's frags opening for Cumberland. Wadi and J-Phone each get 1. Firmza did get F-Saw back. That is still a player advantage for Cumberland, and they got 3 all the way through long with still JP down through short, and they have Uzi trying to hide within that dark cover and being spotted from up above. That's Darkest as well, being visible from Hunter.
Our drone is going to get shot down by Darkest, so they didn't reveal Tuzi's position. Now it looks like a show and go play coming out for Cumberland as they're going to try and rotate over back and leave their Cypher there to lurk. Not just Cypher though. Looks like Sova's going to stay as well to try and see if anyone catches some aggression. Tuzi should get pinged out by that recon dart, so now they know that one's still left over. On that A side, Darkest trying to throw a fall line over onto B, but instead the hit's going to come from B side. Shooter is going to make an engagement. They're not going to get any hits. Aftershock going to come through, but not going to find the pick as well. Plant still hasn't gone down. Still 17 seconds left, and Darkest finds 2 headshots. Tuzi finds 1 as well. Now it's just JP left in the 1v3 with 10 seconds left. They will find 1 pick, but they still have to get the time. They don't have enough time. Tuzi's going to find the pick and even up the scoreboard for Northwood.
Great round for Northwood once again, in Darkest locking down B, refusing to remove themselves from it as well, even with the frags and the obvious use of utility that was being used on A to try to bait out and lull a false sense of it being that site. Darkest stays committed onto the B site, refusing to try to engage away, falling for the ploy. This is exactly what you want to see from a team, knowing that they can do so, because Haven is one of the fastest maps to rotate in between sites. It takes less than 9 seconds to get from A site to C site, and that's just walking at a normal pace, barely even needing to pull out the knife to do so. It's even faster taking the links to go B to A or B to C. Darkest did not have to move very far, and with A site being a retaking site where you typically give up the site as a whole and play for the retake, it was never a primary point of concern, and they never fell for the obvious bait that Cumberland were cooking up for them.
Shadows traveling.
Yeah, it makes things tough now, especially if you're on the side of Cumberland on an eco round now after stringing 2 pistol rounds together. You see Shooter already on low HP. They're going to try and move over towards Garage to see if they can explore another side of the map. But that's exactly where Ferbza is posted up with the operator. Smoke's going to come through the window, but the Outlaw's going to find the pick onto Shooter through the smoke. The rush is going to come by, even though there's going to be repositioning, and Benji now is going to get caught with all the utility, but Ferbza's still there to support with the Outlaw.
From back of flat, Darkest gets one more. Quick swing by Ferbza, but not too much cooking past that point. You're all by your lonesome now, and everyone knows that, and they will fall very quickly after the fact. And Northwood will keep 4 players still standing and getting a lot of actual effective use out of Ferbza with that Outlaw. And they'll likely choose to go for a little bit more of a hefty expenditure here, knowing that the sight lines were there and available. Maybe the operator could come into their hand, or maybe Ferbza will hunt for the ult orb down A and then grab that pip to secure the ultimate here for the Bladestorm. They have gone instead for the rifle, hoping to get that online next. And they can use that Bladestorm alongside the operator later if the push and pursuit from Cumberland once that first shot rings out from that boomstick to try to hunt that down and save their life, which is a big strategy where it feels like a lot of the older style players for Northwood, and a lot of old style VALORANT players tend to do that in the Cleveland scene, and Northwood is one of those old bloods, it feels like, those blue bloods, the Titans for the scene for VALORANT.
College students being referred to as old bloods. But anyway, Cumberland's gonna try and find some space here over in Garage with the Hour Drone to see if they can ping anyone out. They should be able to spot Tuzi there. Paranoid's gonna come through just in time, and the support now comes by with the Hunter's Fury as well. Benji will find a pick onto Shooter. Dip gets a kill with the Hunter's Fury. Ferbza trades out as well too, so they do have control of the spike now in Garage. Fasu will find a pick onto Benji as a consolation, but it's just too many angles left for them to deal with right now, Scott.
SO's got to be a little bit careful here when they go alone, and these no sight lines, but that's a little bit of a caster's curse. We talked a little bit about him, and then it comes through to curses again, and it's just Wadi. I say technically it's just, yeah, no, it's Wadi. Marvel's having a little bit of issues. We'll get it figured out along the way. Don't you worry one bit. Wadi's going to have to try to secure themselves 3 kills in quick succession. And this is dangerous ground to try to do so. Has Spike in hand, can quickly go over towards the A side if they wanted to, can confirm nobody is on B, and we'll watch that link connecting towards A as their primary focal point. Will likely pursue this as the route to step into, but will need to be more so concerned with that C-link side. As there comes a recon bolt over the top, it spots them, they'll stay into the fight, wanting more, and finally we see a transit step for 2 players. Dip and Tuzi taking the wide swing, taking hits for the first person, letting that be a bait, and then making sure that they can't target acquisition turn for the next. Cumberland have now given up so many in a row, and Northwood are plenty keen on letting them do that, and it's going to start being pressed for Cumberland to figure out what is going wrong, and they'll do a timeout, a wise decision to talk things through.
Yeah, old blood play right there for real. That type of swing dates all the way back.
Don't call me out for saying old bloods.
That type of swing dates all the way back to Counter-Strike, where we used to call that the Ferrari peak. The first player just comes by running and gunning, not expecting to hit anything, just to throw off crosshair placement. This was before the advent of a jet dash. You know, we didn't have those type of things back in my day. We had to just use our keyboards and nothing else.
And scream vocally while doing so. It
true.
adds to the level. Please don't hit me, please don't hit me, please. It's got to be jarring to be the bait player for, but knowing that you have the teammates behind you that can assist and will, clean up your kill, that is a level of trust that a lot of teams have to work on. And you see it at the high level. You see it at this stage of the championship for Collegiate Valorant, but at the same time, it can be a little hard pressed to be comfortable doing so, especially if you had either tough map 1 or maybe you're in the throes of a big deficit. You maybe will start to question and play a little bit more individually, which is another misnomer that a lot of teams can kind of fall into and struggle with. It'll be a save round for Cumberland with the eco not being the best of straights. A single stinger out for Estar, just trying to make sure that that is online in the back pocket. Maybe equalize the eco across the board. But you also have the Bladestorm. So this is a manageable round, and ultimates are out there galore, and you're just 1 pip away from the only ultimate you're missing of JP and having that Rolling Thunder. I would not be shocked if we see something being committed here for Cumberland, but you also have something committed the other way. Hunter's Fury out, tons of damage dealt. You get dipped out off the board with that. Bladestorm is in hand now for Shooter. One player back of sight, wants to try to commit and deal with this jet of Ferbza. Now inside of Cubby corner, trying to peek off towards short. There's the blade. Chance now through Hall, and it's a stall for Northwood. They don't want to peek anything, and look at Wadi taking down the initiator of Darkest for the breach. And this is a 2 versus 5, and weapons have been easily collected for Cumberland.
Headhunter right there with the Sheriff, and what was an eco round quickly turns into a thrifty potentially here, because we are going to see Northwood opt to save instead, and I think that's the right move. No reason to give up the economy any more than they already have. Benji will find a consolation pick as Shooter goes hunting, but that's fine. All they had was the Bladestorm. They can't carry that over anyway. And I really wanted to say, beautiful play coming out of the timeout for Cumberland. It seemed that they had a really strong start off of that pistol round, right? They came and started to swing fast. Of course, a lot of that had to do with Northwood opting to flank early and aggressively, and that really got punished by Cumberland. But as the rounds progressed, Northwood played a more proking and prod style. As we see, Benji here gets another pick as well. But Northwood started to play a more prodding defense, just trying to throw utility to irritate Cumberland's plans. And Cumberland kind of stepped back a little bit. They were playing a little slow, trying to feel out Northwood, not really able to get a good idea on what their defensive setup was. This time, they're like, you know what? Screw whatever defensive setup you have. Shooter, go kill, pop Bladestorm. We're going to tag them with the Hour Drone. We're going to set you up with the Hunter's Fury and from the shadows to get you all the information that you need. You don't have to worry about any of that. Just click heads. And Cumberland did exactly that to get this third round.
It cost them everything, though. Let's be frank. Yes, they got to carry some weapons over that they didn't have to worry about purchasing, but it cost them every ultimate bar for JP. It's like, that is a heavy price to pay for making that recovery, that eco round work for yourselves. But it does keep Northwood away from 5, and it puts you up to 3, and you maybe start to get the ball rolling in a different direction. Bladestorm was out for Ferbza. They've kind of missed all your blades there, bud, and so you're going to have to, unfortunately, fare off against the rest of Cumberland, who are all still standing and working their way over towards A site with nothing in your hand, bar single Sheriff, as they try to save some credits with that. Will pay the price. Both tripwires are actually layered up just outside of A. That first one will be cleared, but did the Owl Drone spot the second? Shooter could tap it here, does clear it, but Ferbza, with that Sheriff I was alluding to, able to get themselves a big one in the Rolling Thunder is used in counterance. You're pushing down here through short, trying to deal with JP. You send one back the other way. JP gets Ferbza. One player up in heaven. Head is spotted, and it's a second to him as Wadi dices up Darkest and Hall. It's a 2 versus 4. One coming through Hall, one long con flank here, all the way back through attacker spawn from mid-window in an attempt to try to usurp control from the flank of A lobby. But Benji knows it's impossible, and they will fall back to their home side of C.
And oftentimes, on a map like Haven, it feels, especially on a mirror matchup, right? It feels like whoever uses counter utility is the one that often ends up winning the maps. We saw just how you mentioned, JP's ultimate was the only ultimate online left for the side of Cumberland, and even though we see Darkest invest their Rolling Thunder to try and set up Ferbza for some extra picks, it was a counter Rolling Thunder from JP that actually ends up winning them the round, equalizing things for Cumberland. Well done there.
And now we're tied up at the end of round 8 and the start now of round 9. No hunt to go for the final remaining player of Benji. They're not concerned with their presence. And Cumberland, after the 2-0 starts, gave up 4 in a row for Northwood, and now the question's going to be, what can Northwood possibly do? And the credits aren't looking extremely hot for Northwood as a whole, but they've been kind of riding the success wave through to this point. They'll have at least one more in their back pocket to work with, and Ferbza is saving their credits through that last round, maybe even giving them a chance for a little bit more as long as they're getting kills to get a little bit of extra credits, 100 or 200 credits back to their name for each one they do. Cumberland are now looking to go towards C-Site, though. Something we haven't really seen from them. They'll leave their Cypher of Jfon for as far back close to A as we can. Something we see a lot of KJs do for offenses on Haven. And then the rest of the team start to make headway through C-Long. Make noise, touch the old orb, collect it. Have that in your back pocket here of your initiator of Sova. And then once JP can confirm the audio cue that somebody is lapping out just outside of A lobby, the team can start to prep for maybe this fight to change up for heights. And there's JP doing what we saw Darkest do 3 rounds ago as they pushed into B site and getting that lineup for 2. But just JP does pay that price as Ferbza is forced now to fall back.
Still does find one though on Ferbza. They are going to fall back here, but this should allow them to have positioning with Dip to take this fight. I don't think Cumberland is very comfortable about engaging right here unless they can find a pick here from Shooter. It does spot the shoulder of Dip, but they're going to rotate back out as we see FSA already having most of the control over on C, as we see Benji opting to play off a little bit
30 seconds
here in
left.
garage window instead. I don't think he's been spotted out, so Shooter may be in a difficult situation.
Player count, so just knows, able to just deal with Benji, no problem. And Furbza will use their updraft and just quickly fall away just behind that Cubby Link corner. And these last two remaining players for Northwood, they do not seem keen once again on trying to actually engage for the C site. And honestly, Northwood have been so non-committal for retakes here. Meanwhile, Cumberland have just been committing. If they know that they're still going to have struggle, it's like a 1v3, they still send that player off towards sites. I've only had to see it once, but the contention stands. Northwood are so willing to hold on to what they have. They already know that they were going to be struggling into the next round economy-wise. And Furbza still had money, but I would have loved to have seen the player with the most credits in their back pocket still be standing. Just not going to be the case. Fall back to the attacker spawn, and Cumberland get their 5th here, Jackson.
I think all of that is credit to Fasu there, taking deep positioning in spawn. After clearing a C site for them, it was very difficult for Furbza and Tuzi to try and re-clear that, right? They're going to spend so much time on this 2v5 trying to just deal with one person. As we see here, JP with a huge 2-pick watching the flank here. They just kind of lined up for him. Furbza was able to trade him back out, but unfortunately, it's not enough. As you see this deep positioning from FSA was really what won them that round. It required Furbza and Dip to just take so much time, spend so much time trying to re-clear FSA that they don't have enough left over to retake site.
The play now all the way through C. Cumberland get control of the ult orb once again, padding the ult economy here for their Sova, and it feels like they're really trying to make sure that this Hunter's Fury is online. You're not exactly looking for them to be the primary focal point for kills. They have been very good about it, but it's more so just about keeping the engagement levels high for them in terms of their involvement.
Deploying drone.
Body. Use their owl drone and confirm if anyone is down through short or through long. The operator is there, and having them miss that shot, a lot of the times you would say, okay, the operator is on A, let's rotate elsewhere. No. Cumberland are committing to this. Look at Shooter all the way down through long, now just tucked in behind brick stack. You maybe need a flash from your initiator or a recon bolt or something to force this player to turn, but you had your chance to swing again, and it's another missed opportunity. And look at the way you're closing this gap now. Furbza just within the smoke, trying to hide close. Swatty goes in with the shorty, and though you did lose the first blood from J-Phone, or sorry, not from J-Phone, you did lose the first blood on the side of Cumberland, you still managed to frag that back, and you strip the operator from their hands with this post play.
Yeah, huge play coming out. And you see Shooter taking deep positioning and help, but immediately gets traded out by Benji. Just so many angles that Cumberland is watching. They're able to stop the flood in its tracks. And I mean, beautiful play coming out from Wadi, jumping into the smoke with their own pocket shorty. We saw the game plan come out from Furbza having a shot. A shorty of their own, as Opping Jets usually do, but Wadi able to have their own pocket shorty winning out there. It is just beautifully done. Yes, you get the first blood as Northwood, but it's such a high risk, high reward play from Northwood. If you're getting Furbza on a solo operator hold, once they miss that first shot, it's so difficult for them to continue to anchor the site, especially if they're by themselves.
How much more default can you get for a Cumberland offense than trying to poke and prod for a little bit of information about how Northwood are faring in this round? We now have full confirmation. It's probably Nico around. The Sheriff has fallen to the floorboards just outside of C long. And Benji will throw a little bit of utility as they cascade back in towards sites. Darkest close by. Work and haul on C. You could start to move off in a way that gives you... First off, the ult orb, which gives you now your neural theft for your Cypher. You can also move towards Garage, gives you the double chance for a poke off the other way. But you know Darkest is not inside B, and Darkest was the biggest threat for the site as that initiator is the breach, specifically for counter utility. You can get in there just fine. Hunter's Fury, that is sent from Wadi. Darkest does get a util kill to J-Phone, which is absurd, but you still have FSA and Shooter to go extra levels, the extra mile here, as it's a lock-in fight, a 1v2 for Wadi, who kind of squanders the chance to get the limelight there, but it will still be a showcase for Shooter as they get their 7th total for Cumberland.
like a choice disorder
Last
there.
round before the
See two
switch.
targets, don't really know which one to hit. Interesting use of the Hunter's Fury there. I don't even think they shot. I think that may have been a mistake, a misclick, because I don't think they even shot off a single shot with that Hunter's Fury. Well done though on that anti-eco round. After they get that first pick, they were able to get the Duro Theft to figure out where the rest of Northwood was playing, and once they saw that B side was open, understanding
Do
that
it
it
again.
was an eco round, they most likely do not have the weaponry to provide a proper crossfire. They were taking B side really quickly, and it was relatively easy execution there. So now, final round of the first half. Northwood really want to make sure that they get their 5th here, so that they can call this a good defensive half, Scott. I mean, on defense for Haven, you really want to get at least 5.
Yeah, Cumberland have at least made it hard to kind of even find the chance for it. Northwood haven't been able to get the ultimates in. They're using them fairly often, but I don't know. Tuesday, Hunter's Fury up. Could use this as a way to buy a little bit of time. Back plan also being employed. The Neural Theft could be in. And there's Benji. There he goes. Neural Theft as well. Gets your frag to shooter. Has to use it before they fall. Expecting Cumberland to try to dash into side as fast as possible. They've already lost that jet. Now they're stuck inside Covey, where you've got a ton of damage off, and Benji
Spike
lost
down,
one more player
C.
off the board. J-Phone's no more. And it's a 3-on-5. One player of Furbza wrapping around through mid and now in courtyard. And you wanted to have JP there. They're not yet ready for it. Did not expect that. I've already eked past that. That could be a hay frag, if anything, as these two players watch Spike completely fall under control of Northwood. There goes Wadi. One more chance for FC. What can FC do here, being rushed upon by 2, no 3 to make matters worse? And JP has to get a 1v4 clutch against the Northwood roster, or else it'll be 7-5 on their offensive side.
Triple high-low there coming up from Northwood. Well done. Just weathering the storm there. They gave up
Switching
4
sides.
rounds in a row, but were able to finally close one out. So well done coming out from the side of Northwood. Evening up the half there on Haven. Tough start. If you're Cumberland, you gave up a lot on that. I expected the way that they were playing to at least get it to an 8-4, but all that said and done, now they're on the defensive half. Are they going to be as aggressive as they were on attack, or will they opt to play this counter utility that we've seen Northwood play on their defense? Meanwhile, I expect to see Northwood to really come out strong and attack quick. This is a team that has played so long together that they should be able to know exactly how each other likes to execute. As we see Shooter trying to be aggressive already on the defensive side, I expect them to get this pick here and just roll right off of it, Scott.
And speaking of rolling, talk a little bit about at halftime about exit lag. You can go to exitlag.com, create an account, and use code GGWP. GG well played, GGWP for a discount. You want to use exit lag for a variety of reasons. But we'll harp on today will be it works with over 2,000 games. How many games are out there, Jackson? 2,000 games it works with, and it's constantly being updated so that it won't hinder your performance whatsoever. So make sure to check out Exit Lag. And speaking of checking out, well, you're checking out if you're the Furbza Jet of Northwind. That's a good first frag for Cumberland on their defense, and they can fall back and just kind of say, okay, they don't really have the great way to close the gap anymore, and it's just a matter of trying to get to the intel early without sacrificing anything for it, especially if it's A. They want to get off-site to then play for the retake.
Big pick coming out from the side of Shooter. See a deep A-long smoke coming on the side of Cumberland. Northwood's just going to walk right through it, and it is going to be an open A site as Cumberland is opting for the retake, but after sussing out the rest of the map, they finally made a deduction that's going to be 8 hits. The fall line is going to come through. Wadi's going to try and run out of there, but FC is going to get picked out. Now Shooter fighting a second pick with that Sheriff to thin out the numbers still for the side of Northwood.
You're trapped on site, nowhere to go. One player down below in hell. Darkest though. 3 kills now in the round, getting Wadi and knocking down Shooter so swiftly. J-Phone, Darkest off the board. Their doppelganger, right click maybe there for JP, but Tuesday gets the better in. Goes out in the second swing from Tuesday to time it correctly. And we almost had a Cumberland pistol round win again in the recovery on that ace site. But honestly, losing out on the initial swing for your player in Hall, that first loss for Cumberland, felt like a monumental hit to their chances for that retake. They had to use the breach flash to try to save the second player of Wadi. They couldn't do so, and because of that, you turn the round on its head, and you split this visual here. FSOW needed to be up and standing, especially if they still had Paranoia or a Dark Cover to be recharged. These would have been invaluable to close off this sight lane specifically from Tuesday down below in hell.
Revealing
A lot of that comes off the heroics of Darkest there, finding the 3 picks that they needed, but also Tuzi to clutch out from hell with those classic right clicks. As we see now, Northwood's gonna play a lot more patient, understanding that they have superior weaponry, no need to close the space as quickly as they did before. Better to just poke and prod to see where the defense is set up. Darkest is gonna find that first pick on that lurking flank. See Shooter with the Sheriff in hand, that may be all they need as they get a little tag. Doesn't find the pick, but now rotating over onto the C site.
Ooh, Shooter right out into the open, trying to play that gap against Benji. Nothing yet. Though Northwood do have control of her site, they're kind of hesitating to get the spike down for the time being. They'll plant this for a plat hold and down through C long. Tuzi has flank watch and can secure themselves a kill off there towards FSA. And only having 3 players left, each of them with a Sheriff, doesn't spell the single best stratagem to try to recover in this. You can really go for exit frags though, which may be the idea for Cumberland, or just to die to spike when it goes for its actual detonation. If they wait to extend out, until the detonation is going off and then they step on a spike where they can see them down C long, they could sneak maybe 1 or 2 kills away, but they will not be capable of doing so. So the whole team will lap back the other way. They'll tap the spike to keep them honest, keep them down into long, and then JP, and of course, not Shooter, by the way, on the side there, but Wadi will stay active on site. I know Dip does get the wall bang to JP, unfortunate. But Cumberland will allow Northwood with the 2 pistol round wins to get now a tied game 7-7. Keep in mind, this is map 2. Cumberland just need to win this map, and they're done against the Northwood. And Northwood have to get to 13 to survive.
Not only is it map 2, it's also losers bracket. So this is elimination
You lose, you're out.
for one of these teams. Yeah. So Northwood really got to step it up and make sure that they secure a map 3 at least. Starting off strong here, winning the both pistol rounds, and now if you look at their buys, they still have some pretty strong weapons. 2 Vandals and a Guardian for this next attack push to try and get this bonus.
Northwood doing a little bit similar to what Cumberland were doing, right, Jackson? I feel like they're not as defaulting into spawn, more so a slow courtyard take, trying to take advantage of maybe Cumberland resting on their laurels with the rifles in their hand and trying to play in the longer engagements. The ultimates not here to keep them off. No Rolling Thunder, no Hunter's Fury, no nothing. It's just the 3rd round of the second half, and Cumberland will give up a plant now on B site. You're really hoping that Shooter can make some headway here with this play out. Hey, he does see them, but Benji's just got that crosshair placement to a T. Darkest, now paranoid by a teammate. J-Phone does get a good refrag back towards Benji. But you have to retake a site, and that seems insurmountable. Ferbs only has a Bulldog, but wow! Rip the head off FC, why don't you? And it's the player advantage back in their hand. Slow crawl by Dip. And Dip's able to get that refrag from JP just 1 moment too late. And this is where J-Phone can go, okay, me and Wadi don't really like our chances. This was too fast of a rush plant from Northwood. Not only do they recover from a deficit at halftime, but they're actually going above and beyond that margin, leading 3 rounds into the second half.
Yeah, securing that bonus there. Beautiful play call coming out from Northwood, right? They found the time that Cumberland decided to retake B on a bonus round, and like you said, quick plan. I believe the round just started. 10 seconds in, we already see Cumberland getting the plant there. As you see, so much deep positioning from the side of Northwood, able to get so many different angles. We even saw Dip coming in from the defensive spawn to get a pick there, and it's just the speed of which they executed their understanding, making the right play read on that defense, that they were able to win that bonus round.
Play read, right or wrong, doesn't seem to matter right now for Northwood. They are playing with confidence. Shrouded Step trying to escape. Tuzi has no chance to do so. Wadi has a Vandal still being held from the prior round. We can't say the same thing for 3 of the 5-year players, though FSA does also have a Bucky trying to cook something up there. It's a quick site push off towards C with that loss of life inside a lobby, and Northwood will now cement their position in this round, hoping to make sure round 16 is theirs for the taking. First up, prowls all the way through to Link, connecting into C and B. They will get the refrag back. That's J-Phone to do so. J-Phone maybe wants to have that weapon be collectible, but maybe a little bit too far out in the open to do so. And you do have your smoke player of FSA who could possibly layer a smoke there, but with time already not on your side, use a recon bolt instead to force them back. J-Phone for more. Bucky out, tons of damage to tip, just needs to be cleaned up. Solo at 21 HP. There's the right click from a classic at range. Rolling Thunder in a 1v3 here. That the commitment has already been made. Sorry, 1v2 here, but the commitment has been made, and Wadi wants to try to tap this defuse, and J-Phone does get the kill, but it's too little too late. Time not on the side of Cumberland. They'll make sure that Northwood pay the price for the round win, but Cumberland also pays a hefty toll in the process of doing so.
Oh man, I think Rolling Thunder there was perfect coming out from Darkest. I mean, well worth it to secure the round too, right? Not only are you getting the bonus round, you're getting the round right after that. I think the one ultimate is a small price to play. As you can see, once again, it's a very, very quick plant coming out from Northwood. It seems like the positioning of Cumberland has been just so extreme that Northwood is able to find those holes and plant the spike before Cumberland can even gather themselves on a defensive setup, on a defensive retake. By the time they're retaking, it's already been 10 seconds after the plant has been down.
How close J-Phone is here, though. No, you can't play like that, J-Phone. You're down 2, looking at the possible down 3. What a loss of forfeits, though Shooter does get a kill back. Ferbs is good for the trade. Down with the operator, the boomstick is no more, and that's nigh irrecoverable all the way through at the end of A long. Then 2 players active on site, looking to maybe get a little bit shifty. If they are forced to play back, then you know you are, but if you aren't, you can maybe get a kill or 2 from the 2 first players that will extend outwards, because your spike carrier will likely lag back through long. But there's 4 holding this position, lying at its apex of this curve. That recon bolt will be cleared, and you hear 2 rifle rounds worth to do so, meaning there is at least 2, and the Hunter's Fury tagging tons of intel. FSA does go for the heavy hand and does get themselves an even kill to make this a 3-on-3, where you will likely see this rotate be made, I would assume, towards A, or sorry, towards C, but B would still be a viable option for them if they went through Garage and didn't like what they saw towards C. They could still go back through Link.
Looks like the hit's gonna come through C instead. We do see JP posted up here on this C site. Doesn't have the utility, but has a very strong position in logs. Are they gonna check him? They do double swing. Ferbza finds the pick, so with 7 seconds down, Northwood will get the spike down, and they have a 3v2 in this pulse plant.
Both players come from the same angle too. When you see Ferbza doing what we saw FSA do, standing strong, holding a confident angle, Northwood know they have gunners, and they're going to use every single one of them to their advantage to get this edge, to find something over this Cumberland roster, who dealt such a devastating blow to them at the end of Lotus, 13-5. It's double digits now first to be acquired from Northwood, and they're understanding the tacit agreement that, hey, we want to play off here towards A. We'll take a couple fights. We'll do a really good engagement. And then we turn that back the other direction, and we swing off towards C as fast as we can, and you clear out the util, and you just make a clinical mistake. You miss your shots as the Cypher on site, JP. You just can't miss those. You knock off Ferbza, even if it's a 1-for-1. You've traded out that key impact player on site, which means your 2 players of Wadi and FSA coming in from defender spawn can get their kills. They're not worried about that 1 player holding just behind the Radiant Knight stack and Jin. You're more so worried about the plat player at that end, or maybe a player holding the actual walkway hall, but you can work 1 instead of all 2 at the same time.
It seems like nothing is really working out right now for Cumberland. So early in the round, J-Phone finding a cheeky angle, but unable to convert, just a little bit too much trigger discipline. And then on the other side, JP unable to convert as well. Getting these key frags and missing out on them really, really hurt them. Now they're finding themselves in quite a bit of a broken buy. We do have the Blaze Storm coming out from the side of Shooter. If they're able to convert like they did in the first half, they could be able to stop the bleeding a little bit, but they've given up 5 rounds in a row so far in this half.
Standing ahead.
Recon Bolt sent now towards long. You're trying to keep Wadi away from this spot and any chance for them to fight for that ult orb. It maybe kind of feels like they're playing the macro game if you're Northwood. You want to try to control the ult orb economy. We've seen a lot of teams do so, especially when it came towards C. We tarped on that last weekend and the weekend before. Of teams committing really hard with that C site orb to get control of it on the offense and play for the ults. Instead, it's more so just denying that for Cumberland and making sure they can't get any bit of an edge, especially with the way that Northwood have been icing out Cumberland in the round count wins anyways. Blade Storm out for Shooter. Birds up. Trying to go into site direct, and J-Phone makes them pay. Blade Storm hasn't really had the chance to shine, and J-Phone will be forced to hide into the back of sight as a Hunter's Fury comes towards them after the hour drone tag. There's your kill. Tuzi takes down Shooter, had that Blade Storm out, and Dip gets the third shot off towards Wadi. 48 seconds. There's a Bucky in hand, and you miss. You can't miss that. My goodness. Down goes Cumberland for another one. We very well may be seeing Northwood win out on their map pick of map 2, and Cumberland may not have an answer for it.
I mean, Cumberland throwing everything at Northwood, and nothing is sticking. Buckies, Blade Storms. And that was a huge Hunter's Fury coming out from the side of Dip. I believe Cumberland had all lined up by Graffiti, and Dip tagged every single one of them, making the execute fairly easy for Northwood. I do want to spot out at least a bright spot coming out from J-Phone, able to use the fault line to disrupt the execution and isolate Furbsa to find that first pick. But you need to get more than one, as Wadi's going to get an early Hunter's Fury off, but not even going to find any. Yeah, doesn't even tickle Northwood.
Was that a range limit, or does he, because of how angles change and the degrees of angles change, the further out it goes, was it too low? That's absurd. That was over 3 players nearly every time it was expunged. I want a replay of that. I'm cementing that. The worst replay of all time.
What a waste of the replay. But it's all just to funnel them here into C-Long, into Shooter. It's going to have to spot out the hour drone, but unable to hit it as well. Fault line's going to come to push them off the angle, and that's it. Off to the races for Northwood, getting that easy execute over onto that C site.
You've got the plant. Dip will go. It's a 5-on-5. And Cumberland want to make sure that the operator can maybe be an effective force to contend with. I would like to see that actually go towards Hay instead. But Wadi forfeiting the fight against Benji, not looking the right way. J-Phone just peeking incorrectly. It's incorrigible. It's just now relying on Shooter to do much more than they should have to at this point with an operator in their hand. Getting some assistance. Benji still laughing back. Shooter, one more to their name. CVAL making a way. And you have to clear out Benji. You just don't know where they are, and it's a spray from him. The Cypher. Shooter goes, yep, this was a chance, but I just can't fight for this. And they'll try to go through mid-window, and they're being pre-fired, but the timing was just tight enough where they can avoid it, and wow! They know where they are. They want to contend. Shots go out, and they're shooting for a third. They'll survive this round, but it's still Northwood at match point to force us over to map 3.
Survived the battle, but they did not win the round. That operator is going to be key here for Cumberland moving forward. They need to get Shooter onto these picks early. Can they set them up for something aggressive? I think that's what we've been lacking coming out from the side of Cumberland. Just no defensive aggression, allowing Northwood to just do whatever they want, whenever they want. And when they do aggress, it's off of like nothing, no information. We saw the Hunter's Fury come out. There wasn't any pings. It's not like they have an idea of what Northwood wants to do. They just want to push out whenever they want into no avail.
Cumberland, one player closing garage. The judge. It's 2, and Shooter even got a good shot out there with the operator. The Guardian shots that be a little cleaner than that J-Phone. What is happening, J-Phone? This is an inconsistent level. They lined up almost getting 2, Wadi. So low, but the region shield will at least get them to a fightable point that you can confirm Spike is down in mid, and the last unknown player is rotating away off towards A long and now into the A site itself. They can't collect this. Even if you did, you'd have to move it towards B fast. And Darkest is playing the longest prowl about they could ask for. 43 seconds, Jackson. Wadi could be a sacrifice. You don't want to move Shooter off of the operator because you don't want to lose this in case you do make it to that next round. But Wadi is clearing. It's still over there. You wouldn't worry. There it is. Darkest peeking the opposite side as they knew they were broaching the peekable angle off towards C-Link. Not wanting to bite the bullet from the operator, and instead bites the Vandal shot coming down from C in Courtyard, or down from Courtyard in B. It's 8 now to Cumberland, but they just gave up Casters don't do math. We're really bad at this. That's 8 in a row. Counting's hard. 8 in a row for Northwood. It's been tough for Cumberland.
Yeah, but you know what? Back against the wall. This might be where Cumberland steps up to shine. Huge play coming out from FCA with the judge and garage. I think that was just a bit of like a positioning error coming out from Northwood. You see the fault line come out for Darkest. They want to set them up, but the teammates were just standing in front. You don't want to stun your teammates because they're going to get yelled at. And unfortunately, that is exactly why FCA was able to get those picks, because they were not stunned. However, even if you were stunned with the judge, it's a pretty precarious situation to find yourself going up against if you're Northwood. As we see now, the execute's going to come over onto that A site. Flash and Dash going to come in. Rolling Thunder being invested as well. And JP getting bounced around, but still finding a pick is just a stroke of lady luck there, Scott.
Player up in heaven. Not really much you can do. J-Phone's off the board. I think that was the player with the judge. Maybe could get close. Maybe you have one if you're SA. No, they do. They got the judge. That range for Darkest is absurd, but it's going to be it and over. Northwood get to 13 on their map pick, secure themselves a much-needed victory to enforce their will in this series. It's a full best of 3 now required in front of us in Cumberland, Northwood. It's kind of hard to use that term when Northwood's there as well. Want to go out quickly in the lower brackets, especially when you see some of the teams you will be facing off against in the future. This is just the start, Jackson, for what is to come. If you're struggling here, imagine what's going to go on next week. Imagine what's going to go on tomorrow, let alone next week.
Yeah, God. Winner, I think, here has to face against Fisher Navy. It's a super strong team. But before you even think about that, I don't care what happened earlier today. It's map 3. It's elimination map for both of these teams. This is the one that matters the most. It doesn't matter about blowouts. Doesn't matter about struggles in the previous map. Ascent is where we are going to decide things. And before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's talk about Haven here, right? I think on the side of offense, Cumberland did very well controlling the pace, but they were not able to get a grip at all on defense. It seemed like when they were trying to make a play, trying to aggress, I mentioned it before, they had no information. The 3 times that they tried to aggress, it was a free execute coming out from the side of Northwood, because Northwood was able to spot out the one site that Cumberland decided to leave for retake. They didn't have to use any utility. They didn't have to use any ultimates to just get a plant 10 seconds as soon as the round starts. So there's definitely some sort of a misread there coming out from the side of Cumberland that they have to fix if they're going into a map like Ascent.
You also have to be capable of reading that the third round of a half, if they got the 2 pistols, they're gonna sprint onto B site. I feel like that, like, as a caster, I see it so often. So why would players who probably do even more VOD reviewing than me, shockingly, like, would also be capable of seeing that and read that teams would do so? And scrim as often as you do for maps, right? You would kind of read into that. Cumberland, it's not... the second half was not pretty. It was a lot in the same way the first half on Lotus was not pretty. For the opposing side of Northwood. Glaring problems, but it is your own map pick. We don't see the collegiate special of winning your opposition's map pick and losing your map pick, right? It is straight up, they take each their own. But in preparation for Ascent, Cumberland, we talked a little bit, it can be a little boring watching mirror matchups. It's also a little bit boring seeing the same compositions over and over again. And I would like to say you're not going to worry about that. They're bringing a lot of the new. It's the new Teo Ascent style. No, this is the most standard Ascent style you'll ever see. It's the Jet, it's the Sova, it's the KO. It is just as standard as it gets for Cumberland, but that honestly feels like their strength for this map when you see them play on it. Yeah. They pre-fire every angle. They know where smokes are going to be. They're consistent. The one thing I don't like, though, is how inconsistent the players were in the shooting department for map 2.
Yeah, it seemed like Cumberland, everything was landing the first half. The second half, the RNG was just completely the other way. I mean, nothing was landing. Nothing was falling for the side of Cumberland. Unfortunate there. Hopefully on Ascent, things start to even back up for them and they are able to land their shots. I do expect to see the meta pick. I mean, the meta is the meta for a reason. However, lately, Northwood have been trying a little something different, throwing in the Vice there, throwing in the Yoru. Not exactly a big fan of Yoru on Ascent, but hey, you never know. These guys are definitely better players than me. All I know how to do is analyze. I don't know how to predict. And maybe the Yoru has something that they can work with here.
I mean, they also, a lot of times you'll see like the Vice alongside like a Deadlock, right? Like you'll see it kind of go that way. But no matter the case, I think we're going to go to a quick break in production if that is true in the back here. Yeah, we have team stats. Okay, we have team stats. That's what I was kind of assuming, or we're buying our time for there. We obviously talked a lot about it kind of during the ad-lib at the start, that Northwood weren't doing so hot in the overall department. We turned that over to this one. And while you did still have Shooter and Darkest, top fragging Darkest was 4 kills the entirety of map 1. Had that by the time round 3 rolled around for Northwood. They both tied in the kill department. It was the difference for the whole team. It's just individual small tallies that can be that much of a difference maker. And I think J-Phone was kind of the glaring one. I poked at a couple times where it felt like they had easy ones. The garage window play was a big one. The double lineup through B main when they were peaking on defense. And the inconsistency really rose to the table when they were on defense. I felt like J-Phone was really struggling to find impact as an individual, and the damage that they just weren't getting the combat score for it. And it has to be a little bit cleaner, and we can see a little bit more about how everything pans out. We'll check out the replays as well for the Exlag replays, but there were some great moments, there were some poor moments. I really do hope, do we get the Hunter's Fury one? No, maybe not. We'll talk a little bit more as we come back into it. We're gonna go to a quick break before we do so. We'll see you guys for map 3. Map 1, a 13-5 over on Lotus. Cumberland take the victory off stream. Turn this around though. Northwood shock us up. Haven, absolute surge. What is that? 9, 8 rounds in a row? Where was the answer? Coming back the other way here for Cumberland. There wasn't one. They were non-participants in the second half here, Jackson. Started off 3-0 and it never ended, it felt like, for them. A single round. Like, it's just... We hold back. Ascent is new ground.
Yep.
Ascent is a new map, and it's you have to think of it as an entirely new series. How will this one fare? I talked a little bit about Cumberland's lineup. They like to play the standard de facto as expected. Where do you think Northwood's going to be bringing to the table?
Man, like we talked about before the break, I hope they bring in the Yoru pick. I just want to see it. I just want to see what kind of teleport lineups and trickery we could see coming out of FERBSA on that agent. We see now Cumberland, you know, no jokes. This is serious. It's elimination. Meta pick all the way. Northwood keeping things a little bit more suspenseful. Are we going to see the mirror match? I hope not. Will we see the Vice Deadlock Yoru? I sure do hope so. Especially,
I don't know if they play the Yoru.
I mean, they may not. I was to see the Vice pick come out. Double Sentinel on attack first. Maybe a little bit overzealous, but if they do, I'd be one happy camper, Scott.
There it is.
Oh,
it
there
is
it
being
is.
brought over. I would question it for them if they've done their homework on Cumberland. Cumberland shut down. They were the team that sent that lower bracket team that did nothing but Yoru one tricks a demon to the lower bracket, right? So they're very good at dealing with Yorus. They're arguably the best team we've seen at dealing with Yorus on broadcast here for the championship. So maybe would question if you would want to do so, if you maybe fall back to a different style of strategy. But Vice and Deadlock is so strong, and I mentioned it. If you have the Vice, you typically will see that Deadlock. It's super good to hold down one site and you have your opposing for the other. Sova almost isn't even an initiator for the map of Ascent, while they can be on offense, and that gives them kind of that dual-faceted approach. They're more like a Sentinel because they're typically there for retakes and they're there to hold down a site alone. The great thing about a Deadlock and a Vice is they can be on either site for that, and the Vice can also kind of be a pseudo-initiator when it comes to the offense. Can throw out thorns at range, can use their arc rows to flash. There's a lot still there. Combo that with the unexpected variety and versatility of a Yoru, the composition looks great, and I love seeing this having been stepped into the foray, especially with Vice now becoming way more of an acceptable choice across all maps. But Cumberland, sticking with the tried and true, I've seen teams try to bring out the craziest things. I've seen them bring out new Teo strategies, new Teo agent selections, right? And as well as this Deadlock and Vice combo alongside a Yoru, and they've dealt with it every single time. They feel comfortable with this selection because they know the selection, and you'll see it throughout the game. It's kind of hard to describe. They're a team that has so much map comprehension that they don't have to see their opponent half the time start taking pre-shots. They fire through every smoke. It feels like you're playing a completely different esports. But Cumberland, it can bleed, in fact, on this map, and has struggled against really great teams in the high level of play for championship on this very same map.
And we're going to have to see if Northwood has the answer to meta break, or is Cumberland tried and true against Yorus in general. We see a huge Shark Dart damage come out from the side of Wadi, almost taking out FERBSA immediately. So this pistol round may be a bit difficult right now for the Yoru, already down to one shot. Teleports right in without any flashes. That's huge. But we see this double cross-up set up by JP and Wadi here. They're going to find a pick onto FERBSA, not until JP gets traded out first. Up to Wadi, now finds 2, perhaps 3, no, even trades, but Dip gets the picks that they need to thin out the numbers of Northwood. Now, in a 2v3 situation, we're going to see the retake come out for Cumberland.
They got to poke off into B main here. They know the player's there. Shooter's on the board. This is not an angle at which you'd want to take that, you know, haphazardly. But there it is. Shooter eventually collects himself for the shot off towards Tuesday. Have to say, does get a little bit of visual. Sorry, Darkest gets the visual there towards Shooter's flank. You can use the net to try to keep them stuck out in the open. Does not manage to attack Shooter, but Darkest does so with the Ghost instead in hand. But it split those two players, and that is one of the variety of options that a Deadlock can also do for you. Having that utility to toss out at a moment's notice. Well, you'll likely use it a lot of ways on offense. Doesn't mean it can't be used well for the defensive side. I've seen Teo and Deadlock actually used together for this map as well to try to combo the salvo alongside that, especially for taking B site specifically. You should a great lineup for it to toss from inside or just outside of main for the Deadlock. But no matter the case, Cumberland, a lot like the second half on our second map of Haven, fail to capitalize on the pistol, and Northwood do it just the right way to get the retake done.
Scanning ahead.
CC coming out from Darkest there to separate Shooter and FC. Now we're gonna see Northwood gonna try and peek over here on that B site. This time Cumberland making the adjustment, stacking 4 over there. But Northwood seems to have an idea that that's where the heavy side is. Gonna try and rotate over onto mid site. Will spot Shooter.
Here.
A little bit of a poke game for
Cutting through.
information. So we'll layer up the possibility to TP over. Now you have the commitment from Cumberland. Look, they line up everyone! Well, this didn't work for you on B site last map multiple times. Why are you still lining up like this? And there goes J-Phone as well, paying the price with Darkest. You're essentially treating this Sentinel as an initiator alongside her, right? They're your KO for this side.
Yeah.
And it's so strong on offense, and it's gonna show how valuable it is over on defense as well. This is an expected round loss anyways from the side of Cumberland. They just wanted to make it expensive, and now with the separation between Shooter once again alongside Wadi with this huge use of the barrier orb, it's just a matter of time, and Furbza will do so with that Bulldog, tallying up their tally for the ultimate a little bit more. And I don't know if the tournament realm is considered on the new update or not. But I do know that Yoru did have a change up to increase their ult orb account, I believe, to 9. So I don't think this is up at 8. Unless it was 8. I don't think it was. Maybe 8.
I think KG's the only one with the 9 ultimate count, right?
Maybe 8 then. I know it got changed.
Yeah. This is an 8 count here coming out for the side of Yoru, but big round coming out from the side of Northwood. I mean, as expected, good reads on the stack. Very fortunate coming out for the side of Northwood on that Sheriff lineup. I really was expecting them to at least convert one weapon over onto Cumberland's side, but strong start right now for Northwood. Let's see if they're able to win out this bonus as well. Looking to execute over on the A side.
Flight.
I will say, this time at least, Cumberland's getting the right read on the initial stack.
It is patch live. 8 now for the dimensional drift, and it also decreased the timer for, it also decreased the timer for that dimensional drift. So the VTOL doesn't last nearly as long. It went from 12, I think, to 10. Which could be something that will throw a lot of the agent selections out the window. I mean, Neon got a pretty substantial hit for the timer for their ultimate, and look how far she has fallen, how the Mighty have fallen. Of course, for the overall other changes to her kits, that can play a pretty big role into it. Urza's, or I should say Yoru's, kind of feels more specifically aimed at just the ultimate of that Yoru. Urza will try to entry in here off towards Puppy. J-Phone is flashed. Technically shock darted. Has no more shield to kind of go through. There it is, tallying back up. This Fusion shield procs. They try to go into the fight against Benji, but no way to do so. And look, you're initiating as a deadlock because you have the Annihilation out. You just send it off up towards Rafters in hopes it'll hit anybody. Nobody is trapped by it. And the team from Northwood will go, okay, we've gotten ourselves a good pick. Let's rotate on over towards the B site, break through this door. And we just got to get onto the site safely as the recombo goes. And down goes the player holding it as well. Wadi gets 2 from the cross. One chance. That's a spray and pray for JP. Talking about a Ferrari peak. Literally was just running and gunning and turned that into a round win for Cumberland.
Darkest gets taken down, which they needed to do to make sure that they don't die with just the sheriff. I mean, stay alive with just the sheriff in their hand. But Darkest getting the ultimate in round 3 is actually insane. Well done coming out from the side of Cumberland, not falling for any of the rotational baits. We did see JP and Wadi hold fast and strong over on that B side for the expected rotate of the spike. They get the picks that they needed just in time to win out their anti-eco round.
Revealing area.
That one way, dark cover used, and a fallback from SA. Cumberland on the defense will still continue to use their typical 2-1-2. And the rotation for J-Phone is the important one. They don't really have to worry too much about Northwood playing in through Courtyard. That has not been a focal point for them and likely won't be with this agent selection. It's one of the things you have to keep in mind when you do bring something like the Yoru alongside that Deadlock and Vice. They have to play fairly close together. And if you do separate, it's because you put a player there and left them there, like we see in this round for round 4. Lay off on A site, the whole team has control. You know, place the procs alarm, and you have Darkest all the way off towards Wine in hopes that maybe Cumberland will rotate and be caught off guard from a single player, but you really don't want to test the waters too heavily. As there's a recon bolt sent onto the A site. Now we'll drone out in through A main, and AP will call out. Okay, it looks like it's going to be a B site hit. There's a lot of utility being used, and I've countered with a lot myself. Send everyone but one from the A site in to try to contest as the garden goes out as well. Wow! Northwood committing a lot here to this B site take, and you still haven't even found the value yet until maybe the visuals there. No, he's trying to step away! They don't even get the effect they wanted to on the A side, and JP and Wadi get their 1-for-1s to stay active on B, only equaling out the odds, and technically it's a 3v2 for this retake.
Yeah, Darkus is so far behind. He's gonna have to try to close this space heavy. Shooter's gonna dash right in there. The flash is gonna come out from the side of Northwood. They gotta hold fast here at Bolthouse. Mistime flash, miscommunicated. It's got to be up to Benji. They're going to get taken down by FC. Now Darkus on that late rotate. They're going to get smoked out, but Darkus will get the pick onto the diffuser. J-Phone trying to get the defuse as well, but there's just not that much time. The fake is there. Darkus is going to clutch up in that 1v3. Made it there just in time for Northwood to win out round 4.
J-Phone should have made the call out that both players were in back at Boathouse. It's Shooter just turning incorrectly for the fight for the last two. They couldn't have ever known because Darkus didn't take the shot against FC. They didn't take a fire. They didn't try to go at it. They didn't know where the third was. And right here, we see it, the drop in. Shooter tried to play against the pop flash that was sent, which I guess if you really want to do it, pop flashes are a lot more viable now on the KO. We mention it every week. It just doesn't, it wasn't necessary. Shooter can take those fights themselves, and that alone feels like it turned that round the other way in Northwood. Now we'll have not only a chance to go 3, but also 4, because keep in mind, this is an eco round once again for Cumberland.
Yeah, pressure is high now on this elimination match. Every little mistake like that is going to be huge. The Dark Paranoia is going to come through, as well as the Hunter's Fury. A pick from Wadi right now, and a ton of damage done onto Tuzi as well. They're going to try and regain mid-control here on this eco round coming out from the side of Cumberland. Shooter's going to push out Will Spot. Benji unable to find the shot. Now looking to re-engage. Takes the shot, able to dash away to safety. Now back to the neutral.
That's why you have Wadi playing all the way from defender spawn. Look, player goes all the way deep there. Sheriff's an easy cleanup, and now you have a weapon. It's a rifle in Wadi's hands. JP already had a Guardian. JP sitting in guard in, now waiting to be able to use that as Wadi with the rotate from bottom mid. Secures the frag through the wall onto Furbsa. And if you're the only two left, Dip and Benji, where can you go? A site is completely locked down. Everyone's rotated over. These weapons that your team fell and lost in these positions have been collected. You have to go back through courtyard if you want to try to rotate closer towards B site. Time would not be there to go all the way back through attacker spawn. You know this. You'll say, sitting stacked inside of A hall, on the precipice of getting inside a site, but being incapable of doing so at the end in Cumberland. What a round result for them to turn round 5 on the head like this.
Beautiful adjustment coming out. Oh my goodness, that is so expensive. You go for the hunt, and Benji is the hunter instead. Shooter will be the one to take them down in the end. But that's a lot of damage done coming out from the side of Cumberland. It was their eco round, I guess, right? Like, you didn't really lose credits. Yeah, they were free guns, but you could have had a chance to kind of steamroll that economy if you got that thrifty win. I mean, they did, but they lost a lot as well in the process.
Yeah, I mean, just watch this right here. How many times have we seen our Cumberland line up like this? It's becoming a glaring issue. It's gotta get nipped in the bud real quick. But it's 2-3 now. Northwood still in that lead, but Cumberland able to piece something together there for the thrifty, for the eco actually, total eco. The only person who had anything was JP with 1 Guardian. And Northwood will probably likely start to see a little bit more of what I would see as their substantial attacking round wins past this round, because they're at a thrifty buy. Bulldog from Dip, Stinger out for Darkest. Like I said, you kind of treat them as an initiator, so you let Furbsa get out into space of the Yoru, right click with that classic, and then the rest of the team can close the gap themselves, following quickly behind what creation of space can be made by the Yoru and the unexpected TVs that they have, who almost is their own initiator. They're like an initiating duelist. There's just so much little util for initiation across the board for this Northwood roster. But they are losing players very quickly, and it very rarely be flawless, actually. So it's only 1 remaining, and Dip is just playing the cut at top mid for some reason, of all things, and hoping that they can get a kill, but they don't. It's flawless for the 6th round of the series, and the one that ties up this 3rd map.
And if I'm Northwood, I'm going to be extremely careful pushing B site for the rest of this half. I mean, the crossfire from JP and Wadi has just been a lock over on B. No matter what kind of utility they're throwing from Northwood, it's being dodged by Wadi and JP. They survive all the sheer gardens, all of the paranoias. It's just they're able to lock down that site, and this time with Shooter there to help as well. It doesn't matter what Northwood tries to throw out, it's gonna get shut down.
What's there to do if you can't get into their face? Well, do it anyway. It's the Shooter. Down through top mid, or bottom mid, I should say. Now re-peeks out from Market and gets some assistance from Essay. Two committed players, both J-Phone and Essay, come out through Puppy from Garden End, and you now have a player advantage ×2, and you don't know where they are, sure, but you now at least have confirmation at the cost of Wadi's life. Dip, great shot though, by the way, to deal with their doppelganger. Shooter at 30 HP, you know where they are. You have a good spot to peer in from, but Benji, the one more that you didn't know where they were, lagging behind in attacker spawn. Shooter wants to try and peek this. Great pop flash. We've seen these pop flashes be so difficult, but that is consistent. The perfect angle for it, and Shooter, while slow to actually get the kill because of a good shimmy step, won't have that second problem. And there's J-Phone. Cumberland read into it at the perfect T, and J-Phone and Shooter may be the most gorgeous tandem duo you've seen in a 2v2 you could possibly ask for.
This is not the same Cumberland team that we just saw in the second half of Haven. I mean,
No,
these aggressive pushes that we're seeing at the start of round, these are informed. This is 0 points. This is Al Jones recon darts that's setting up Shooter, something that we did not see happen in Haven. Look at that beautiful pop flash, beautiful angle holds. Well done coming out from the side of Cumberland. This is what we needed them to do, and they are making sure that they do not want to go home today.
Chance again. You hear that, Sheriff, though? You don't have to peek this anymore if you're Cumberland. You'll fall back and wisen up to it. First blood, Wadi. Down the darkest. Sheriff in mid. That's Shooter being able to secure that courtyard player of Dip. And Benji will peek it as well. You saw a little bit of him there, but you can't go too far with that tailwind because you got a player top mid, and they've been digged through the crate. 2Z 1 HP. Ferbza trapped all the way over inside of Octopus. This B lobby, and down they go just the same. Is it flawless? For Cumberland, it will be. Another one to their name on top. And they were struggling to get rounds under their belt, and now they found the momentum, I think. Right, Jackson? They've started to finally piece together the right idea, but you will see Northwood come back in full effect this round with every single ultimate in their back pocket.
Yeah, I think you really need to punish Shooter here, right? It's been 4 rounds in a row that Shooter just straight W keys out of the site after the walls drop, and you really have to punish him. Maybe send a flash. Expect it. Somehow, wherever site you're hitting, he's always there with the rotation. Yeah, let's see it right now. Pop flash right there. Shooter finds 1 and 2, is gonna just dash out of there. Not before they get taken out by Darkest. Dimensional Rift and Hunter's Fury there as well, but Wadi still on site, finds the 2 picks that they need while sidestepping the Hunter's Fury. Try to regain control of the spike here, as they're gonna hide in the smoke.
And they have spike control. Yeah, the dark cover technically hides it, but once it's gone, that's it. They can kind of wait their time, and even if they don't, and they lose control of the spike, they have to rotate closer to A, and that's 3 players they've been spotted. Shoulder over the end, right below them. Timing perfect for JP and for FC to swing in the same fell swoop, and they've guaranteed an even half. Worst case now for Cumberland Phoenix. With 3 more rounds left in the half to go, it's turned from a 4-0 to a 5. And that was the round you needed. You used 2 ultimates. Used both the Dimensional Drift and a Hunter's Fury, and the Hunter's Fury was good. Dip got a ton of damage. Wadi just decided to take the hit because Northwood's players couldn't stay consistent on their aim to deal with them from within that Hunter's Fury. The same problem J-Phone has been having in these fights, right? The thing that I said really plagued Cumberland individually on map 2. We're seeing Northwood kind of do the same thing.
I mean, not only did Cumberland guarantee a tied half, look at their economy. They are set. Even if they lose every single round up until the last round of the half, they will never have to face an eco round. Meanwhile, on the side of Northwood, they're going to be forced to go for a kind of a broken buy here, maybe half shields to go into with the rifles. you have to punish Shooter. The play call has to be right now, okay, we know Shooter's going to push. We try to just use a dimensional rift, which I understand, but it's for gathering information. You basically took one weapon out of the occasion to deal with Shooter, right? There was no flashes, no mollies to try and punish this guy. This guy's just getting a free walk up. Shooter's smurfing right now, basically, on these guys, Scott.
It's a pretty, but the thing is, Shooter's getting there and being able to do that, not just because of Shooter. We even I hopped on Shooter a couple rounds ago, and it was the retake on B. Shooter is not playing a perfect game. It's just J-Phone and Shooter are playing a perfect game. These two together are doing something that they can't do individually. J-Phone is struggling to get kills. That's fine. They don't need them to get kills. They just need to elevate Shooter to the platform that they are on to continue to get these kills. Northwood dips very low starting out this round. Round 10, double-digit marker now here. You have a Guardian, a Vandal, and then Sheriff's the remaining three. And it's just Cumberland. Look how far back they're willing to play this. So much respect when it comes to B site and the passivity there. Bottom mid as well. Having the Owl Drone poking for that intel, falling back. Now trying to use a net to ensure nobody is peeking that door for the Puppy, which we have seen be really good for J-Phone and as well for SA. Saw them do that 2 rounds ago. They're worried about it. I think that's Northwood trying to progress on their offensive and make sure they're not making mistakes. And this is now where you worry more about a ton of noise being made through that market door. Outlaw shot from Shooter. There it is. Lockdown being laid in. You're just keeping them away from sight. Now they have to go towards defender spawn. They can't engage you unless they were to sprint straight through, and there's just no way to do so. Off with Shooter. Annihilation. Yes, that will get JP, but you're alone. You can't recharge this Annihilation any further. They're just going to clear out JP. Nope, they don't. That's a little unlucky. They're just going to try to clear out the last player as they move in, and it's a perfect crossfire. They don't have to worry about eco. You mentioned that. They were already padded out at 9K credits basically for everybody. But Northwood needed these ultimates to start working in their favor, and that Annihilation there, I think it's just, they used it when they thought they had a chance once they dealt with Shooter, and you said it, Shooter is a problem and has to be killed. But Shooter isn't the only problem, and the problem got dealt with a little too late. 2 Outlaw shots already connected.
It feels like a bit of, you know, desperation coming out from the side of Darkest. I understand they turn it into a 1v2, but you had no information about where the rest of the other players from Cumberland were. So it does make things difficult. I wouldn't say it's a bad play, but they should have saved it and maybe tried to combine it with the rest of the ultimates that they have here right now, Scott.
What could you possibly do after you so much and gain so little? These last 2 rounds, really last 8, but these last 2 rounds, right? Specifically in the ultimate economy. The From the Shadows isn't going to do you any miracles. While the Rose Garden can be clean, it's not something that can be used if the team is struggling across the board, especially if you lose this one. Because then the eco is even more up in the question. The loser's bonus is padded out. It's packed out. It's done. It's as high as it could get for quite a while now. In the same way that Cumberland were barreling against that issue and a consistent factor of losses, now Northwood are doing the same, and it just gets worse with the first 2 bloods of round 11 also falling in Cumberland's favor.
This is tough, but we did mention during Agent Select that running this double Sentinel on attack first is a bit of a gamble coming out from the side of Northwood. Yes, these Sentinels do have the ability to sort of pseudo-initiate, but it doesn't really hold the same candle when you're up against true initiators like KO and Sova as well. You just don't have the utility to kind of fight back. Darkest finds the pick, but Wadi traded out too. And you see the numbers just so thin on the side of Northwood. Darkest once again finding themselves in a 1v4. This time no Annihilator in hand. Does have a Vandal. Will have to start and try to pick these guys down one by one. Shooter's gonna swing. Shooter's gonna shoot. Shooter's gonna hit. 3 on the board for Shooter. 8 for Cumberland.
Last round in the half.
You literally just did Cumberland's entire cheer factor, by the way, for this team. Shooter's gonna shoot is what they have been laying out in their socials and in chat consistently across every event and league that they've ever played in. They know what the wow factor is for this offense, and they allow them to put on that pedestal, like I said, with a great assistance overall. Roddy in a lot of these rounds using the recon bolt to force sightlines away at the right time. J-Phone obviously stripping those sightlines with the flashes. these are practice moves. These are not just like, hey, can you pop flash this? It's hard to have that KO flash work perfectly. It's not like a guiding light where you can fly it over there perfectly and then choose to detonate it at that moment. It's a lot harder and much more dangerous. And there's the attempt to sprint here now in towards the seaside. The front of the shadows has been forced away. Rose Garden goes, but you use the null command to counter back, and you have yourself a Hunter's Fury, or sorry, a Blade Storm in the back pocket here for Shooter, and that makes your Garden completely useless. You're still too scared to peek out from this angle.
Yeah, there's so many things on the side of Cumberland that Northwood have to deal with. No command, putting a stop to their tracks. And there's just nothing left from the three members of Northwood here that can really get them out of the situation. They're gonna have to rotate off and try a different site. 4 strong already for Cumberland on A. And JP understanding what they need to do, trying to take some space over on B to try and make sure that they haven't rotated just yet, but also don't want to give up control of B site to site anchor by themselves. So they're going to rotate back. Northwood's going to try and scale up here on mid. Our drone should spot them out. At least spots out Tuzi, and that's one. They know the fight should be coming mid. Already set up for the side of Cumberland for the trap. J4 right there. Wadi as well to trade. And all that's left is Tuzi, gonna get taken down. First half is gonna go to Cumberland, 9-3.
We won't mention
Switching sides.
the events. We'll avoid it for the time being. But Cumberland played a absolutely beautiful end to that first half. And you say it's an end, but really it was a start, right? Keep in mind, Northwood started off in such a strong manner, and then Cumberland had to kind of go, okay, we lose the pistol. It's a little unfortunate. We'll just try to go in afterwards. And I said Cumberland are one of the more impressive teams overall on the map of a sense. They are hard-pressed to not understand how a team is really breaking down their pushes. And I don't feel like there's a great way for Northwood to really close the gap on their offense. Jet would have been good. A cloud burst, yeah, if you're Cumberland, you're still spraying through every smoke. It doesn't matter if it's a cloud burst smoke or not. You're going to spray through it to try to deal with the players that could be on the other side or within it. But at least they could get a little bit faster behind some gaps, and in a way that would be a little bit more influential, getting the team into that open space. We saw such good glimpses of that potential to get these teams onto site, but Northwood weren't able to actually actualize that in the meat of these rounds against Cumberland. Didn't see enough from Darkest with the tethers to try to get some space. Didn't see anything with the walls past round 4. Ferbza, again, mentioned already, it feels like maybe the Jet could have been a little bit different, but it is what it is. And then Benji, the Arc Rose playing to play alone, almost like it's the map of Lotus. We saw how Lotus went. 13-5 is how it went in favor for Cumberland. It's got to be a little different.
Look over on the A side. All of the Sentinel utility from both players are on A. So they're going to make sure that A is completely locked down. Well-timed smoked by Tuzi to prevent any pushes on the B side. And this composition from Northwood has been set for defense from the jump. Look at how tight everything is being played right now, Scott.
Attempt here from Shooter to have prowled all the way up through market. They're stuck here, and they'll need the team to start to give some sort of space the other way. They've been tethered. It's an easy frag. So just flicks over to M-Save it. Get 3. Why don't you? Off with you as well. 4, and it's an ace stolen. We talked about it. It now needs 8 pips anyways to charge that dimensional drift. It lasts a little bit longer, or a little less longer as well alongside that nerf. You've now got half of it guaranteed just right there in the start of the first round. And we said, wow, Darkest got their ultimate really quick. We're about to see Ferbza do the exact same thing after the impact of round 13.
Ferbza warming up now with those sheriff shots. I mean, 3, 4 quick picks coming out. And this is all just based on the patience of Northwood. You see they have really set the tone here. Again, Cumberland never really explored onto the A side. They do not know what traps lie for them there. They may get a taste of it just now, as this defensive setup from Northwood is quite unconventional, Scott. I mean, they're completely giving up mid wide open. And this is just for Tuzi to just eventually go over there to try and spot peek over on mid to protect the B players.
Tip waiting, pulling switch. Cumberland will leave that spike behind, like you mentioned, talk a little bit about putting that player off towards Wine. All of that Sentinel utility over towards A, and I'd love to see more of that Sentinel utility as we progress through the second half be more versatile, more varied. Because as it is right now, you're like, hey, the fight is, they're just going to have to go to B side because there's so much utility the other way. I don't think that's true at all. I think there's plenty of other ways to kind of break it down, and you have the ability to do so. There's your third kill. It's 1 pip away. Even if you die here, Furbza, you will confirm your ultimate. You have a ghost you're hunting for, and there it is.
Oh!
Charged up.
Standing ahead.
FC now hits themselves a gun, and you already had one if you were Benji. Or sorry, you already had one if you were
30
Wadi.
seconds
Now you've
left.
usually gotten yourself the chance to secure dark cover. Greatly placed. They're using this as a ladder to move forward, and Tuzi is stuck. Paranoia in a pre-fire blind for Wadi. Able now to get onto site, and what can Benji do? Is Cumberland guaranteed a 10th? Or will we see another shot come the other way by Benji to turn this around? It's a heightened variation stack for the play down through stairs. Both players watching. Benji poking here, does get dealt with, and Cumberland shock this 15th round and get double digits.
I mean,
I think you time out here, honestly.
Yeah,
One more, maybe.
You just got eco broken. Like, yeah, you had it if you're Northwood, right? I think a little bit too overconfident there coming out from the side of Darkza and Furbza. I mean, look at them. They're just trying to push up, and they get taken down by classic right clicks. It's a free gun, but it's still very strong, guys. It may have been nerfed. This is not how you want to go and give up double digits to Cumberland.
They're gonna play so much disrespect for space. Wadi sees the shoulder of Benji and fires at the head height to get the wallbang headshot kill. And Cumberland are doing a little something cheeky there with JP with a stinger, I guess. I can see the intent behind it. But they are now at a 4 versus 4. That weapon's not going to do too much good in the hands there for Northwood. It is still something they could have. Sheriff out for dip. J-Phone will make sure that that doesn't go on for too much longer as door is switched. Spike is handed over to Wadi. They were asking for it, and J-Phone will stay stacked up on that walkway. And it's just trying to fight Northwood before they have a chance to try to set up, at least, on this site. Aldrone over the top. Furbza does get a nice shot, but J-Phone gets it right back. Darkest another. J-Phone still standing, and wow. Wadi telling J-Phone not to jump up puts them in the perfect spot to get those 3 kills at the end of the round, or the 2 extra kills at the end of that round.
I'm still speechless about the previous round. Scott, I mean...
Recover, Jackson, please.
Yeah, okay, all right. Gun round now. It was a little delayed, but gun round now for Northwood. You have to make sure that you win this round, because I don't think the loser's bonus is going to carry over into match point enough for you to buy these rifles. So you have a dimensional rift to work with, but that is about it. You got to make sure that your defense is completely tight, and at this point, now we finally see the spread of that Sentinel utility. Posting Furbza over here on Catwalk. It's going to be a good position for them to try and get their pick. 0 point will spot them out, so they will have to fall back for a second. Darkest there to support as well. We see JP just trying to explore mid a little bit here and get some information. Meanwhile, the stack is going to be pushing towards that B site.
You don't need that Sentinel util for a post plant. Not on Haven. Or sorry, not on Ascent, I should say. You don't need it. They know that. So JP goes the other way. There's the barrier. Able to stop JP from moving, and they get the kill afterwards. So it's pretty good for him. SA, no problem off to dip. Equal 4 on 4, and that no command from J-Phone is keeping the Northwood players back at bay. 1 player from Market. There's that dimensional drift that they've had charged up. They're waiting for the flash. 2 players inside B main, trying to turn and run, trying to make sure that neither player is looking the same direction. And they flushed them all the way back now into Octopus. It's a quick sprint now in towards site. Wadi, though, pre-fires Furbza and wins it. The pop flash isn't clean out down towards site. Darkest, though, doesn't care and still gets there. 1, as they'll have to stage its shooter in Wadi. 1 HP to their name. A piece shooter can't even see Darkest, and it's a flick down to Cubby to deal with Wadi just the same. 5 to Northwood. Damage done, yeah, if you're Cumberland. But you gotta look, 6 rounds until they tie you up. You just need 2 2-round wins against their 7 in total if you want to keep them away from overtime.
I don't know if that was truly the play that Northwood had in mind, but beautiful adaptation off of that dimensional rift. Once they spotted 2 coming out from the side of Cumberland in main, I don't know if you noticed, but Northwood immediately 4-man rushed onto main to push back those 2 players, and then they evenly split up the fight into 1. Furbza dealing with the 2 players main, but the rest of Northwood able to flood the site on B 3v2 to eliminate those 2 picks to turn the tide in their favor. Beautifully done by Northwood there.
There's only real 2 chances to use the Dimensional Drift as a defender. You pop it right at the start of the round, and if you don't do that, then you're popping it for a retake. That's exactly what Furbza did. So was tempted to do so, I think, as they were exiting out of tree early in that last round. But immediately afterwards, you go, okay, we didn't use it, so what's our next step? Use it for a retake. So they have to get into a retake potential in the first place. The plan had to go down. It goes to B. That's fine. You gave it up. You didn't TP over there as the Yori, even though you did have it up and available. Cumberland have been trying to wait out a lot of that. As there goes a huge steal, and Wadi will be thefted by the Annihilation, and Darkest will wait to watch it in, as they'll also secure that frag immediately afterwards. As 1-2 do get broken, there's this moment where you still can't fight back. 2Z with a Spectre in hand of all things. Takes down their Doppelganger, and it's a 2 versus 4. A site not super clean. You have 1 player all the way back at rafters. 2Z is aware of that. Head could be visible. There it is. Not gonna matter if you're J-Phone, but they're alone now in a 1v2, trying to flush Furbza back. 1 HP to their name, dealt with. 87 now. Little bit of armor, and Spike can go down with Door having already been switched. They'll break it. They want to get their freebie. There it is. Dip close by. Easy intel from the Hunter's Furies. Or sorry, from the Recon Bolt, and Dip is just poking and prodding. No even pre-fire attempt from J-Phone, despite seeing that shoulder dip in and out. Not trusting the amount of ammo they still had left in their rifle, and Cumberland will give a 6 now to Northwood.
My heart, be still. In that 1v1 situation, not even waiting for a tap. You see Dip just jiggle peeking there, and look at the economy is just so broken coming out from the side of Northwood. Not even able to get a full buy despite winning the round. Still able to find the shots that they need to win this and prevent match point. And look, this is amazing discipline from both players, but just a part of me just wanted J4 to just spray. You just spray, maybe you get the wall bang, something. That was so risky coming out from the side of Dip. But you know what? High intense situations, high risk, high reward. Northwood avoid match point.
The big thing to look at there as well for Cumberland is they really were just beating towards Garden a little bit too heavily in my mind. You've already lost 2 players there. You needed to deal with Darkest. That was kind of the main attributor. You get 1 player off towards Rafters. J-Phone gets there. The moment J-Phone gets that kill onto 2Z, your job as you're stepping out as the secondary player in that 2v3 is to hold back and not actually step out just yet. Get your crossfire stabilized. Make sure J-Phone can peek further along Rafters so that you can then play that parallel trade. There never should have been a chance for Furbza to even get a shot back against J-Phone, let alone fall back below into hell and then try to fight back from there. Huge flash over the top. This goes just over the end. 2Z doesn't peek that. Likely Northwood realize that they have that KO. There's no need for us to try to take early fights, especially if they also have the Omen. The one way is just too much.
You see now Eco coming out for the side of Cumberland. And they're going to have to try and play this slow. No Blazestorm for Shooter to work with as well. FC trying to get some information onto the backside of Bullhouse to see if they can get a pinch. But Darkest is playing off-site here to try and wait for this retake.
Placing swarm grenade. Swarm grenade out. Placing swarm grenade.
Watch out, Cubby.
Swarm grenade out.
Actually, you burning here, Cumberland. JP trying to be a little bit active for the team. Making a lot of noise now on B side. Going out. Still, it'll be a man advantage for them if they can just get there, but they're just not able to do so in a safe manner. FC on objective. Paranoia's both in Boathouse. Could have been maybe an opportunity. Wadi, though, now also knows Furbza is there. There's your flick. 2-on-2, but Benji able to isolate FC on Staircase, and that's also Spike under their claimant control. And it'll be a stack for Height. Sees both, and there's just nothing Wadi can really do there. Needed to wrap all the way in from Walkway, try to get that Spike grab stealthily. They'll complete under vision, try to crouch under it, and then rotate. Northwood get 3 in a row now. Cumberland just needed 2 in the span of 7. They haven't gotten any in the span of 3 up to this point. 4 more. Casters aren't good at math. 4 more until it gets really out of control for them, I think. And then they start to question how they can really change. But the ultimates, this is where I think the big thing comes up for Cumberland. The ultimates, or what's going to be the big difference for them on offense, but the ultimates are also coming online for Northwood, and the counters here could be the biggest thing in the back of the mind for Northwood, saying we can't get them giving a single one, let alone 2. Let's force them to use the ultimates if they have to, but let's make sure they use all of them if they have to.
Yeah, ultimate economy, relatively even for both teams. I think the silver lining for Cumberland right now is these rounds are so close that Northwood can't even squeak together a decent fight. We can see a fast push B-split off of this no command. They're gonna have to see some magic come out from the side of Darkus. Finds the first pick onto Shooter, but the Hunter Sphere is gonna try and catch them. F-Save finds the pick onto Dip as well. Furbza continuing the magic, bringing the shot. Swati will trade them out, but Darkus holding strong over on backside. Now Wadi finding themselves in the 1v3, dodges the net, swings out and finds the pick onto Darkus. 1v2 situation again. They do have the spike this time, Scott.
Yeah, but how much is this? It's too touch and go for Wadi. You can try to bait this. Both players heading towards walkway. Spike is touched for a moment. Paranoia really well played in, but taking too much damage through the Radiant stack, and it's an easy cleanup. 8 now for Northwood. And after all of that, Shooter can't be the only one to extend on a side. I'll dig at Shooter for failing to get that kill. I will. They did. They should have absolutely 100% taken out Darkus in the back of sight. That first kill should have been theirs, and then the second and third that went in favor for Northwood never should have gone the other way. And that's happened like 3 or 4 times in this map, and it happened even more last map where we saw Cumberland fall apart. This can't continue. But he shouldn't be the only person out there. It should have already been one down walkway to help out against Darkest. If Darkest is there that far out into the open towards back side, not even in boathouse, and the only person that sees them first is the stairway player, something's gone wrong for Cumberland, and they got kept back in a way they weren't really expecting, which 2 players wanted to come from main and were being stalled by that barrier. So it could be a miscalculation by Shooter to step through a little bit too early as they're stuck into another eco round, and you may very well see Northwood at 9 here by the end of this. But anything can happen, and we have seen Cumberland pull out thrifty round wins in pretty substantial fashion, actually.
Still gotta try and weather the storm
Spike
here
down,
just a
mid.
little bit, as Darkus is gonna find that first pick with the Outlaw. Spike is gonna get regained, and it looks like it's going to be an A hit. Split from tree. Benji already holding the angle here. Smoke's gonna come down, but F-Saw and Benji there to support. They find the picks that they need. The spike is going down. Furbs is gonna go for more, and it's a flawless round coming out from the side of Northwood as they are steadily trying to catch up.
This is where someone says something pithy.
Arguably, that's the angle to peek because the visual is so slim.
I'll wait.
But it's slimmest for the defender there. They have the advantage for the depth of that peak. You still try to work with anything you can get instead of a 40, line of sight, 40 FOV angle at which to peek into. You're it's 20 this way and 10 the other. But Cumberland only have sheriffs, and trying to all go the same exact way with also utility going against you is a ridiculously hard task for anyone to deal with. And here's the dimension that I said on defense, you typically see it popped at the very start of a round, or you'll see it for a retake. And this is the very start, and Cumberland know that, and they don't want to have to worry about it. They don't see the aura around it, so they go, we have to hit this A site. We got to do so fast. What this simple utility is, and they're walking straight into it. It's 2 early kills for Northwood, and they'll have to fall back fast.
Northwood is like, yeah, finally our trap worked. That was the play they've been trying to run since the beginning of the half, with all the Sentinel utility over onto that A site. And this time they had the Dimensional Rift to confirm nobody was pushing B, so a quick rotate coming out from the rest of the Northwood players to collapse onto this A site and support Benji there from the shadows being used as well to teleport over. Now, quite some deep positioning here coming from Wadi, but Furbza just cannot miss right now in this half. Benji finds the pick as well. Now it's just JP left in the 1v5. They are going to have to try and save this. Otherwise, it'll be another flawless round coming out from the side of Northwood, as well as a dire economy situation for Cumberland.
Yeah, but there's 40 seconds left.
Ahead.
Honestly, if you're Northwood, you hunt for this, you just flawless the prior round.
30
This is probably a good
seconds
idea. You have 2 players that you'll gladly kind of sacrifice Furbza a little bit. Even though Dip has 4,600 credits, they would be the best person to die. Furbz is already low, so spread the damage love.
Everyone still has full shields other than Furbza, so well, no need to sacrifice anyone except JP, I guess.
Well, we wanted a game 3 for the content, and we got it here. Jackson and Cumberland are now facing the same veracity of success on the defense as they dealt back in Northwood's way at the end of that first half. It has been a very ugly picture for Cumberland. They needed 4 round wins. They've gotten 2. Half of it. Since then, nothing. Everything for Northwood. 1 away from tying this thing up. And it's another eco in front of Cumberland. And they don't have a Blade Storm to try to save some economy. They don't have the other ultimates close by. This is going to be probably a battle of touch and go for the ult orbs. Trying to balance some sort of direction for this and key into maybe a little bit more about where these Sentinels are placing the utility, because they only got a great picture of it last round, and that's not even where they've been putting it consistently. They have actually been floating that utility around quite a bit.
And it just, honestly, a lot of these rounds are ending before Cumberland even gets a glimpse of what the defensive setup really is for Northwood. It's just Verbza being aggressive on defense, just swinging out, hitting shots that honestly they shouldn't be hitting. Some of these kills are ridiculous, and it's just a great setup coming out from the rest of the team as well. And this doesn't allow Cumberland to get into a flow to even figure out a defensive plan. Even right now, they seem a little bit lost, Scott.
Stinger as well for JP. Again, you typically have your Sentinel with that weapon. They come in a little bit late. Try to fight. As many Sheriff users as possible in this engagement. Try to strip away an easy weapon, and Verbza didn't try to TP out there.
Revealing area.
Taken down because of it. Recon bolt over the top, try to keep them away from it. Honestly, I'm kind of amazed that Cumberland didn't take more damage overall in that fight. JP now with this Stinger in a lockdown online will use this towards B, but the players are going to A. And in Annihilation, in an attempt to try to strip away JP, they saw it coming, they fall back. But they are not falling for this ruse. If you're Northwood, they've left 2 players on A, and with all that Sentinel utility still in play, it's still a major question about how you fight this. Paranoia in. Benji trying to fall into the corner, not able to get the shots. Essay now trapped alone on site, playing on Pixel. You gotta rotate if you're Wadi, but they want to have to go for this plant. Not in default, just barely at the edge of it. The shock dart being avoided. You gotta hit that shot if you're FC, and it's a 2-on-4. Now around the corner, rushing them with a shorty. The B-hop's too clean. And it's a bounce your way to victory scenario for Northwood as they tie us up 11-11.
I applaud the attempt from Cumberland to try and get a lockdown fake, but Northwood's not gonna get fake. They don't mind rotating over there because, again, the Sentinel trap coming out from the side of Benji and Darkest there. There's just, look at all of this utility that Cumberland has to deal with just to try and clear Benji. They never have to worry about being faked out because there's just so much utility to protect Benji, for him to buy time to stall a 1v5. It's just incredible, this defensive setup right now.
Yeah, it's so tough. It's an unstoppable force, and what you'd expect to be an unstoppable force against a literally unmoving object. And that's Northwood's defense. It's what the Sentinels can do. And I talked a little bit about how annoying they are to face off against. Now look, it's no longer every piece of Sentinel utility on the A side. They've split it. Vice is back over on B. If you just never know what's in front of you, how are you expected to fight it? And I talked about it. Cumberland have such map awareness and game sense that they're going to know how to break down the map as a whole and where you're going to be at certain moments, but they don't know how to do everything if there's too much utility. Essentially overload the brain of the Cumberland players to force them to think about too many things so they can't focus on the one big important one. And we saw that happen kind of on map 2 with players struggling to get kills, struggling to collect themselves for frags. We're seeing it a little bit here as well. They know one person's in wine. Look how fast Doozy sprints out of there to get away from wine, knowing that they were spotted. Just had nothing to do with that at all. Comedic at its finest, and it will be a rush down through bottom mid to get your team off towards B, where the Vice uses the guarded, and with the TP from FC, you still get that kill, and while you're jammed, just avoid lines of sight for the time being. Dip. Back it away. Nano Swarm, dangerous, but not that big of a problem. J-Phone getting this plant down, and Jackson, it's a 5 versus 4.
That one play from FC might be the one that saves Cumberland by holding on to this lead. We'll have to see here as they play this post plant. JP making contact with Darkest as well to try and hold the line here. That's going to be pretty tough for JP as they're going to get netted. Shooter will find the pick. Tuzi, Trey's coming out evenly for both sides. It's going to be up to Darkest, the hero right now, finding the picks that they need. 1v1 against FC. Spots FC in Boathouse. This is going to tuck back. Finds the angle, swings. Round win for Cumberland. They take the go-ahead round.
Darkest has been so scary. A threat of unimaginable levels against the mental of this Cumberland roster. That Phoenixes have to rise from the ashes, but what's the direct opposite of a flaming, soaring Phoenix? Well, it's going to be the darkest of nights, the shadow in the corner, and that's what this player has been. It's just their slight shimmy step, the slight difference in mobility. They don't really ever stop feeling like they're moving. The shots they take back at you are kind of a fluke. They tap one, they tap twice, then they stop and spray. It's been so different that every player now for Cumberland has had to face them at some point in time, and every single player has fallen victim to that. It's absurd. But you're in the last possible round until overtime if Northwood can do it, and if they can't, it's Cumberland's in a full best of 3. And man, oh man, Ascent has been a brawl between these sides as Dip has now been spotted. Vicewall, a very big concern. You try to move Shooter down through bottom mid, maybe they do the exact same thing they just did last round.
And this is another difficult defensive setup coming out from the side of Northwood. Cumberland has to play very careful. They have to try and pick their poisons literally on this offense. They've spotted out 3 players over on B and decide, you know what, let's take the weaker side here. J-Horn gonna pop the Neuro command, the null command to try and take down this utility, but Hunter's Fury also to support as well. Tuzi's gonna get taken out. Wadi finds 3. Cumberland's going huge right now with these picks. FSay gets one as well, so now it's up to Dip and Ferbza to try and reclaim this A site in the 2v5. Ferbza has been a hero so far in Ascent. They're gonna try and swing to find the first pick. 3, face him. JP gets the pick. Cumberland win out 2 rounds in a row. They eliminate Northwood from CVAL.
We said they needed 2 in 7 rounds. 2 in 7 rounds to keep them away from overtime. And it took them 7 rounds to get there. It took them so long. An unbelievable amount of time in contention. Cumberland had to kick it into high gear at the final minute moments, but they do so. They survive the onslaught and they tear down, just barely, this Northwood roster. The number 4 seed stepping up as the number 7 seed, and they'll move on and continue through this lower brackets. This is probably the best map of Ascent you could watch for the time being in the collegiate Valorant scene, and it's been a pleasure to be into that and see how close it can be with such different agent selection as well, Jackson. We talked about it. The standard as all standard gets for Cumberland, and then the actual change-up, the actual curveball with the new style of the Deadlock and Vice together, and what your Yoru can kind of piece together, that coming out from the other side of Northwood, and it worked on their defense. But look, Cumberland did the same thing on their defense without needing all of those Sentinels.
Yeah, it's honestly, this has probably been, like you said, the best map of Ascent that I have ever seen. Like, it's so refreshing to not see, you know, the same meta mirror match. And we praised Cumberland in the beginning for being that sort of like Yoru breaker, but I really don't think that they found an answer for Ferbza at all throughout the entire match, right? It wasn't until the end where they kind of stacked up the ultimates that they needed. They had the null command and the Hunter's Fury to really clear out all of that sentinel utility. That was probably what they were just waiting for the entire half, just to get that opportunity to clear out all of that util and finally take the site. What an incredibly entertaining match to watch, Scott.
I think that's about as perfect of an inning as you can ask for as well. Cumberland still at LAN, right? By the way, they're still there playing this game, and their crowd is likely behind them. If you've not seen any of the clips on social media, go find them. They are so avidly cheering for these players. They're so avidly cheering for every player in that program that it's really refreshing to see. It is. And so now knowing that they can have this victory in front of them, which you don't always get to get, it adds to another layer, and the fight behind them, this was a new style for them. And we'll talk a little bit more. We'll break it down as we jump on over to our exit lag replays to kind of see and break down the events throughout map 2 and map 3 as we didn't see map 1. But man, I mean, just look at these early states. Benji with that double hit with the Sheriff, and another one lining up a little bit later on towards A when it was a 2v5. They had a great double cross in. The amount of double shots and the amount of collapse that we saw from Northwood against Cumberland would have had me really annoyed if I was Cumberland, and I think they started to eventually fix those problems. Here it is right there from Benji again. They started to fix those problems, but it's so weird to think back and go, that was round 6. And we still had 16 more rounds between there, 18 more rounds between that, right? Like, there's still that much more Valorant in the future ahead of it. And it's you still remember those moments so avidly. And I'm sure it's the same thing for Cumberland, knowing that those were big problems. And giving any sort of breathing room to Northwood was a bad mistake. You messed up a single more round on that defending half, Jackson. That was game.
Yeah.
Northwood would have already gotten to OT and probably forced it.
Yeah, and honestly, like, look at these shots from Furbza. I mean, Yoru is mostly known to be an agent that brings tricks, but Furbza came out with the flicks, hitting all the shots that they need. My only like criticism of Northwood over there was just getting so super aggro on that second pistol round that they gave up that eco breaker. And Scott, that would have been the round that solidified overtime for them. And we saw how close this map ended up being. You cannot make a mistake like that during elimination.
It's just, you look at the way Northwood play this, it's so beautiful. And you look at the difference between the two impact players in my mind, like the two big ones, and then we'll throw it over to stats as well, and there's already. But the two big ones of mine are Furbza, like you mentioned, as well as Darkest. And Darkest is good in the sense that when they were finding these big kills, these 1 kills, these 2 kill rounds, even 3K rounds, they were very impactful kills. Furbza sometimes was getting 2 to 3 kills, and it felt like any of the team could have done that at any moment. But it was good that it was Furbza, because Furbza was doing Furbza things. Darkest kills always felt like this was a make it or break it moment, and this was CU squandering that, right? This was them failing to take down Darkest. We'll go into more detail, but you'll see it throughout. This has been such a tough battle for these players. I wish we could see specifically like head to head. I'm sure we'll check it out on VLR everything afterwards, but it is a crazy stat showcase, especially when you compare it over towards map 2 we saw, where the edge was just so minimal, and yet the second half was such a distinct difference between the two teams.
Yeah.
And it was just the difference of J-Phone at the bottom. J-Phone locked it in that first half. Those are some of the best KO plays you could possibly ever ask for alongside Shooter, and it secures. Go ahead and take a look at these stats.
And as we see now, like you mentioned, Darkest over there, 26 and 17 on that deadlock pick, and they were just responsible for so much of those late round comebacks, right? Especially on that defensive half in those 1vx situations. Furbza also coming up huge, and Wadi. How did Wadi silently got 30 kills there on the map? That's insane. I didn't even notice them putting in that much work, but that was just how much.
I think that just flipped. Is it still
had to have been Shooter? Right, yeah.
I mean, Wadi was doing work. We have a screenshot. We can confirm. No, it's Wadi. Wadi did get 31 kills.
That's just them silently setting up on B site and just holding it down by themselves. It was just insane.
ACS.
I mean, it's crazy. Honestly, Scott, like watching this map just felt like the play styles between these two teams are just so different, right? You have Northwood, who have been a team that's known for their aggression, that is known for their innovative play styles, bringing in the Yoru into this matchup, and just W key nonstop, setting each other up, right? Almost feels like early Sentinels when they were winning VCT championships. And then you have Cumberland, who's here. They're more by the book. They play with each other. They play slow. They feel it out, poke and prod, just to figure out where all the utility is. And just the clash of those two different ideologies is just so fun to watch.
The thing with Cumberland as well is, like, they can be innovative and they can be crazy. And I think that's one of the reasons why I personally really like watching Cumberland play. Also, they're really nice guys on that team. But for me, it's that when the going gets tough, they sit in with the same thing over and over again. They just get down to Valorant, which to me is like, it's like lock in. They're the very definition of lock in. You're hanging out with the friends, someone laughs, and you're like, all right, my turn to hit this sick joke. You lock in, right? They do that every time. Up. Like, this is just the state of being for Cumberland. And it's really refreshing to see, because there's so many teams that have those hero players that kind of go out and do things. You know, the Furbzas, the Darkest, who's crazy and distinct in their movement style, and that causes them to win gunfights, right? There are those things, but it feels like Cumberland have done something a lot of teams and programs haven't done, where they have thrown out the real, you know, the line, the fishing line, and said, we're looking for this style of player, and they went the whole world, right? They went far reaching to bring these players in, and they caught a gorgeous selection of fish And I'm super glad that they were able to make it to Cumberland and be able to play and to, you know, be this supported for making that kind of a journey. And I think we can actually show how the actual bracket is now turned into, because keep in mind, we had the winners game earlier with Texas A&M Maroon, who you and I have a very good depth of understanding on. Is there a chance they go through once again? Time will tell, but Maryville has done what seems impossible. Not only did they take down Cumberland, who's already gotten through a big section of the lower rounds, they also had shut down SJSU, which is a fairly middle-of-the-pack team, but they did it in dominant fashion. They also took down Fisher Navy, which is considered a really strong team. So they've made their run through, and it's not an easy state whatsoever. And then Texas A&M, they had to get through Northwood first. This series, this game, first in their section. That is a tough one, and they were an invite team from CVAL South, the 5th seed. You then turn that over to West Virginia University, who beat Cumberland to be the #1 seed for South, who was in that group. They beat them down. Then you turn it over to Harrisburg. They had to deal with Threnthrup, and they did, but you still beat them as Texas A&M. They are arguably have the highest, I would say they have the biggest repertoire in front of them and behind them, and they want to prove themselves again for the upper rounds.
I mean, that's what championship pedigree is. When the going gets tough,
Frosty.
everybody needs to step up. Austin Frosty has been playing amazing. I can't wait to see what they bring again this year. They didn't come into this the favorites. Like you said, they were just the invite team, but right now they are looking extremely strong. As we take a look into the lower bracket, we mentioned just how difficult this lower rounds were. I mean, Northwood getting there early, St. Clair, Winthrop. These are heavily favored teams that you would not have expected to be down here in round 3, Scott.
Yeah, it's crazy when you look at how many teams, first of all, have been here. All the teams that were in lower round 1 that then had to fight to get through, and then how those teams have fared against some of these other teams moving on. Lower round 2, UST having to face a good battle against Columbia. Then against UCI, that one was on stream. It was a really good broadcast. Then turn to West Virginia. They beat down West Virginia. Again, that's like the CVAL South teams just cannibalizing each other. They're having to take down the teams that are in their region, and it just looks like it's going to get worse. I think that Winthrop and Fisher Navy game is going to be outright tremendous. The HU Storm and Northwood game will feed families. Oh, no, sorry. Then Cumberland and HU Storm game will feed families. As that has to be adjusted. That is going to be a crazy one, because we saw Harrisburg. They were clean as can be. And we also saw them against Texas A&M. And Texas A&M kind of beat them down. A little bit closer on map 2, right? I think it was like, what, 13-10, 13-11? Towards the end, it was really close. But that first map was not that close at all. It was split. It goes, obviously, the first half is pretty dominant, and it turns the other. But it doesn't matter. It's just a really good selections. We are kind of spoiled, and you as the audience are very spoiled for what's going to be coming here for the championship.
Yeah, and even just looking at the next matchup for Cumberland and Harris Storm, we have the pleasure of casting both of these teams, and we have a pretty good understanding of how they like to play. And that is another matchup of like different ideologies, because the Storm bring out the non-meta picks. I mean, they have that. I believe they run a Neon 1 trick, and they've been just storming past all of these top tier teams with that surprise pick. So it'll be really interesting to see how Cumberland once again deals with these non-meta picks.
Yeah, Huso's really good. There's no sleeping on him as their duelist option, but you compare that to Shooter, then that's kind of your battle there. I would argue Ian, their Sentinel, maybe has a lot more chance to kind of be that big comparison to Cumberland and to be that elevator. But it's going to come down to the map again for him. And sometimes you have maps where it's really good. Sometimes you have maps where it can be a little bit iffy. For Vice, for them on Ascent, I know is really good. Turn that over and you have Cypher on Split we've seen. Really, really good. But it was obviously struggling. The team as a whole was really struggling against Texas A&M. As I was watching that a little bit as best as I could, as I know the broadcast before this. But there's so much in the future for it. But with that being said, that is all we have. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll be back live again tomorrow with even more action from the college championship. So don't you go anywhere. Stay tuned for more. See you guys tomorrow.